North Dakota is known for its endless plains, snow-covered winters, and isolated landscapes. But buried beneath layers of snow and time, some villages hide secrets that refuse to stay silent. Abandoned homes sit frozen in place, chimneys broken, doors hanging on creaking hinges. The wind carries whispers through empty streets, and shadows seem to flit across frozen fields. Travelers have reported seeing figures moving behind frosted windows. Footsteps crunching in the snow appear, only to vanish before anyone can follow. Some say the snow itself is alive, hiding the forgotten stories of those who once lived here. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted forgotten villages in North Dakota. Places buried in snow, forgotten by time, yet alive with echoes of the past. Where the wind carries voices, shadows linger in the white haze, and the cold seems to watch every move. Step carefully, for these villages remember every visitor. And some never leave the snow unscathed. Hello, dear friend. I hope you are warm and safe tonight, for we are about to step into the icy and haunted world of North Dakota's forgotten villages. These villages were once thriving, filled with families, laughter, and life. But harsh winters, economic collapse, and tragedy turned them into frozen graves of memory. Empty streets hold secrets that refuse to rest. Homes sit frozen, yet the air is not still. Some visitors have reported whispers carried by the wind, even when no one else is present. Others have seen shadows move across snow-laden yards or through abandoned buildings. And some report being watched by unseen eyes, invisible yet present. Before we wander into these frozen towns, let me ask you, if you were walking through a snow-covered village and heard footsteps behind you, would you dare to turn and face what follows? Or would you flee into the blizzard, hoping it spares you? Think carefully. Your choice may reveal the courage or fear that lives inside you. May your curiosity guide you safely. And may the snow hide only what you are ready to see tonight. Frostvale sits at the edge of a frozen mountain pass, a village abandoned to time and winter. Snow drifts through shattered windows and piles along the rotting wooden porches of empty homes. The wind carries a cold that seeps through layers of clothing and seems to settle in the bones, whispering through broken chimneys and collapsed roofs. At first glance, it appears as though the village simply succumbed to harsh winters, yet those who venture here speak of something far stranger. The main street stretches between weathered storefronts and toppled signs, each building a testament to lives once lived and now forgotten. Footsteps echo in the stillness, sharp and deliberate. Yet when travelers turn, they find no one there. The snow crunches underfoot, disturbed only by the occasional drift sliding from a roof or a branch shaken by the wind. But the sounds of movement persist as if invisible inhabitants walk alongside the living. Whispers follow visitors as they explore Frostvale, calling out names that belong to no one known. The wind carries these murmurs, or perhaps the village itself speaks, repeating fragments of the past in soft, haunting tones. Some hear laughter, muffled and distant, while others feel a presence brush against their shoulder, fleeting and unseen. Every visitor senses the same tension, a feeling that the village remembers those who wander its streets and watches silently as they pass. Buildings that were once homes stand with doors ajar and windows shattered, allowing the snow to invade every corner. Inside, furniture lies in disarray, coated in frost and dust. Broken tools and household items hint at daily life abruptly ended. Shadows stretch across the walls as the sun falls low behind jagged peaks, making each room appear larger, emptier, and more alive than it should. The old mine sits at the center of the village, a gaping maw of darkness that once provided livelihoods and now seems to breathe with its own cold life. Wooden supports lean precariously, and the snow drifts in, forming strange shapes at the entrance. Some visitors swear they hear the distant ringing of pickaxes or the creak of carts along rails. Noises that fade as quickly as they come. Even the bravest explorers approach with caution, sensing that the mine guards secrets that have been waiting in silence for decades. During the day, the sunlight reflects off the snow, creating a deceptive serenity. Frostvale seems frozen in time, almost picturesque, But those who stay longer notice the details that unsettle. Doors are found slightly open when they were closed, and fleeting figures seem to vanish at the edge of vision. The village feels alive in a way that is not human, as though it is watching, remembering, and perhaps longing for the lives that once animated it. Even the sound of silence is layered in Frostvale. Wind moves through the hollows of the mountains, carrying whispers and echoes. But the deeper stillness holds its own resonance. Some visitors describe moments when the air grows impossibly heavy, as if the village itself presses in, drawing them into its history. A faint warmth or a sudden chill will appear unpredictably, small reminders that Frostvale is more than some of its snow and ruins. At night, the village transforms into a realm of spectral light and shadow. Moonlight reflects off icy surfaces, creating illusions of movement along the streets. Shadows dance where no candle burns, and the howling wind shapes itself into tones that suggest voices just out of reach. Few have stayed overnight, and those who have often recount dreams that mimic the village, corridors of snow-filled rooms and streets that twist beyond reason, whispering names and histories that feel impossibly real. Despite its desolation, Frostvale draws those who seek mystery, history, or a glimpse into the unexplained. Photographers, urban explorers, and thrill-seekers arrive to capture the perfect image or story. But all leave with something different. Some carry a sense of melancholy for lives interrupted. Others a lingering unease at the unseen presences that follow them long after they leave. The village leaves impressions that are subtle yet persistent, the kind that surface unexpectedly in quiet moments far from its frozen streets. The architecture itself speaks of the past. Timber frames sag under the weight of snow. Brick chimneys tilt as if bowing under centuries of neglect, and the skeletal remains of roofs allow the sky to bleed into the interiors. Light and shadow play across surfaces, transforming ordinary rooms into stages for memories that refuse to fade. Every corner holds a story, every staircase a pathway to recollections that might be real or conjured by the mind, caught between the tangible and the spectral. Frostvale is a place where time seems to slow, and where the line between the living and the echoes of the past is blurred. The wind carries voices, the snow shapes itself in unnatural patterns, and the air holds a weight that is felt as much as is heard. Visitors depart with photographs and notes, but many admit they cannot fully describe what they experienced. The village has a way of embedding itself in memory, of lingering like a half-remembered dream, leaving each guest to wonder what parts were real, and what belonged to the silent whispers that inhabit Frostvale. Those who step into Frostvale walk among the remnants of human endeavor and the quiet persistence of nature. They trace the main street, hear footsteps that have no source, and feel the presence of histories long past. The abandoned homes, the snow-drifted mine, and the whispering wind all create a tapestry of mystery and reflection, reminding all who visit that some places are never truly empty. Frostvale holds its secrets closely, allowing only glimpses. Yet those glimpses are enough to leave a lasting impression, a haunting memory of a village frozen in both time and story. In the frozen silence of the mountains, Frostvale waits. It waits for visitors to step cautiously through its streets, to notice the subtle movements, the drifting snow, and the fleeting sounds that hint at life where none should exist. And long after the last footsteps fade, the village remains a frozen echo of the past, whispering names and stories that refuse to be forgotten. Snow drifts endlessly across the frozen landscape, swallowing entire streets and leaving only jagged rooftops visible above a white sea. Winter Hollow lies hidden beneath layers of ice and snow, a town trapped in time. The once lively community now waits in silence, a ghostly monument to winters long past. As you approach, the wind carries a hollow whistle through the skeletal remains of chimneys and rooftops. Each gust seems to whisper stories that the town has held for decades. Families who once filled these streets with laughter are now memories carried on the wind. Their homes, half buried under snow, lean like weary sentinels against a relentless cold. Walking through Winter Hollow is like stepping into a painting where motion has ceased. Snow crunches underfoot, each step echoing across deserted roads. Windows, frosted over with ice, sometimes reveal fleeting shapes inside. Figures pause behind the glass, frozen and silent, as if caught in mid-thought, staring outward at a world they can no longer touch. The main street, lined with abandoned shops, stretches endlessly. Doors hang on broken hinges, swinging occasionally when the wind finds a path through. Signs, chipped and faded, hint at businesses that once thrived. A bakery with its roof caved and still carries the faint aroma of bread, as if time itself cannot erase the echoes of ordinary life. In the town square, the church steeple leans precariously, its bell long since silenced. Snow has gathered on the steps in soft, untouched waves, forming patterns that shift with the wind. The square is still, yet alive with suggestion. The footprints of visitors appear for a moment in the fresh snow, then vanish as if the town prefers its own solitude. Winter Hollow is a place where time has a different rhythm. The days stretch gray and silent, and the nights are thick with a cold so deep it seems to seep into the bones. Lanterns, left on porches, flicker despite being unlit, shadows dancing at the edges of perception, and the faint cries of children long gone. Walking past the old schoolhouse, the windows reveal nothing yet hint at everything. Desks remain where they were left, chalkboards streaked with faded lessons, and coats still hang on hooks as though a teacher might return at any moment. Some visitors swear they hear faint footsteps along the hallways, slow and deliberate, stopping when approached. The sound fades like mist in the morning light, leaving only the quiet certainty that the town remembers. The residential streets hold the deepest mysteries. Homes are partially buried, their roofs just visible above the snow. Curtains flap in the wind, suggesting movement inside even when no one is there. Some say that in the longest nights, figures appear at the windows. They stand in silence, framed by frost and shadows, watching the world beyond the glass without ever moving. The forest bordering Winter Hollow adds its own haunting presence. Bare trees stretch upward like blackened fingers, their branches brushing against snow-laden skies. The forest floor is hidden beneath a thick blanket of white, but tracks appear from time to time, leading from the woods to abandoned porches. It is unclear whether they belong to wildlife or to the lingering spirits of town, but their existence reminds visitors that Winter Hollow is never truly empty. Local legends speak of families lost to blizzards decades ago. Storms arrive suddenly, trapping residents inside their homes, cutting off access to food, warmth, and safety. Some were never found, swallowed by the relentless snowdrifts. Over time, the town was abandoned, yet the presence of those lost remains, carried in the wind and reflected in frozen windows. Visitors report that the cold seems to deepen when standing in certain spots, as if the land itself remembers the suffering of the past. Even in the dead of winter, Winter Hollow has a strange beauty. Icicles hang from eaves like crystal daggers, and snow forms soft ridges over fences, hedges, and broken pathways. The sky overhead is often a pale gray, diffusing light evenly across the town, lending an ethereal quality to every surface. It is a beauty that feels fragile, haunted, and alive in a way that cannot be fully explained. Exploring the town brings a mix of awe and unease. Every creaking board, every whisper of wind, every shadow seems to tell a story. Winter Hollow is not violent or frightening in conventional sense, yet it exerts a quiet, persistent hold over the imagination. Visitors leave feeling the weight of history, of lives interrupted, of stories half told but never forgotten. By evening, the temperature drops further. Figures behind frosted windows linger longer now, a gentle reminder that the town, though silent, is never entirely still. Winter Hollow exists as a testament to both nature and memory. It is a place where snow buries the past, yet refuses to erase it. Its streets, homes, and shadows preserve fragments of life that cannot be forgotten. Each step through its frozen expanse is a step into a living history, one that is as mesmerizing as it is melancholic. And as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town, a question lingers with anyone who ventures there. Do the figures at the windows watch for the living? Or are they waiting to be remembered once more? Silent Creek lies hidden beneath layers of snow. A village once alive with the hum of farm life, now reduced to quiet silhouettes and icy memories. Even the wind carries a stillness here, as if it too remembers what was lost. Visitors who wander the narrow, snow-choked lanes often speak of a sudden chill, as if the air itself resents their presence. Cold hands brush against their arms, fleeting and impossible to trace. Some pause to look back, but the path behind them remains empty. The barns, their wooden beams weathered and cracked, creak softly in the wind, each sound echoing to the frozen silence like a memory of life that no longer breathes. The houses of Silent Creek stand in varying states of decay. Some have collapsed under the weight of heavy winters, roofs caved in, walls fractured. Others remain intact, their doors hanging ajar, windows clouded with frost. It is in these intact homes that visitors most often report strange phenomena. Lights flicker within the empty rooms, dim and tentative, only to vanish moments later, leaving behind the soft hum of winter wind. No one lives here, yet there's a presence that feels almost tangible. Some have described shadows moving just beyond the periphery, figures that vanish when faced directly. Footsteps follow the unwary, yet lead to nowhere. The village seems suspended between the world of the living and the realm of memory, a place where the past refuses to let go. The central creek, once the lifeblood of the community, now runs silently beneath a thick coat of ice. In summer, it nourished crops and provided water for livestock, its gentle babble blending with the sounds of daily life. Now, its frozen surface reflects the pale light of winter, a mirror to the sky above and the emptiness below. Some visitors swear they have seen ripples in the ice, as if something beneath the surface stirs when no wind blows. The snow-covered fields conceal fragments of history, tools rusting in the cold, wagon wheels half buried, and fences broken and twisted by time. Each object tells a story of labor and life, of families who laughed, cried, and lived in a rhythm dictated by the seasons. Walking among them is like stepping into a pause between moments, where every sound is amplified, every shadow carries weight. On nights when the moon is high and the air is still, the village seems almost to awaken. A faint glow can be seen through frosted windows, the shape of a figure moving slowly across a floor that has not felt footsteps for decades. Whispers ride the cold wind, fragments of conversation from lives once lived. Though no one speaks, the words are understood, carrying the weight of longing and unfinished stories. Travelers who venture to Silent Creek often speak of the strange sense of familiarity and unease. They feel as though they are intruding upon a memory, stepping into a world that is both real and imagined. Some have returned repeatedly, drawn by a mix of curiosity and something harder to define, a pull from the silent heart of the village itself. The barns, with their broken doors and weather boards, hold perhaps the most persistent hauntings. Visitors report hearing the faint sound of animals, the lowing of cows and the stamping of hooves, though the stables have been empty for decades. Some swear they hear tools clinking, the metallic echo of hammers and saws shaping what that no longer exists. At the edge of the village, where the forest begins to reclaim the land, snow drifts are deeper, swallowing entire fences and half-hidden foundations. The cold seems more acute, more pressing, as if the trees themselves guard the remnants of human life. The air carries a sharp clarity, and the silence is so complete that even the breath of a visitor sounds loud against it. Yet amidst the ghostly atmosphere, Silent Creek holds a strange beauty. The snow glistens like crystal under the moonlight, and the pale sun casts long shadows across fields of white. There is a stillness here that invites reflection, a quiet that lets the imagination roam free. The village is both warning and sanctuary. a place where the past lingers and the present feels fragile. Some who have spent the night in Silent Creek leave with stories that defy explanation, lights that vanish when approached, footsteps that circle empty barns, and fleeting glimpses of figures in frosted windows. These experiences are not violent, but they're insistent, a reminder that the village is not abandoned in the usual sense. Life once shaped this place, and the echoes of that life remain etched into its very foundations. Silent Creek is a testament to the passage. Its frozen streets abandon homes. And Silent Creek tell a story without words. The village invites curiosity, a cautious respect, and the understanding that some places never truly die. They linger waiting for those willing to step into their quiet mysteries, to feel the brush of the unseen and to witness the fragile boundary between what was and what remains. Silent Creek. Walking through the village, one cannot help but wonder about the lives that once filled these streets. Families who worked from dawn until dusk, children who played in the snow, and neighbors who shared laughter and sorrow. All are gone, yet in some inexplicable way they remain, etched into frost, reflected in the flicker of a light or a sense in a hand that brushes against a visitor in passing. Silent Creek may never reveal all of its secrets. Its snow-covered silence guards them closely, leaving behind only impressions, sensations, and fleeting glimpses of the life that once flourished here. It is a place of beauty, melancholy, and quiet mystery, a village suspended between what was and what can never return. And for those who walk its frozen paths, the question lingers with every step, every shadow, and every whisper in the wind. Who truly inhabits Silent Creek, and why does it insist on making its presence felt to those who dare to enter? Snow Ridge sits isolated, a village swallowed by winter and time. The air is sharp, carrying the scent of frost and old pine. Snow drifts in heavy curtains, blanketing the landscape in a relentless white that swallows the roads and muffles the earth. The cemetery remains visible, headstones half buried in snow, their inscriptions fading beneath layers of ice. Travelers who venture here speak of silence unlike any other. Not the quiet of nature, but a stillness that feels watched, as if the frozen fields themselves are listening. Whispers float across the snow, carried by the wind, repeating names visitors do not recognize. Some claim the voices call to them, soft and urgent, just at the edge of hearing. Figures appear occasionally, trudging through snow too deep for ordinary movement. They move with purpose, yet seem unbound by the laws of the living. Shadows stretch across the white expanses, shifting and bending as the light changes. Those who witness them describe a chill that runs deeper than winter, seeping into the bones and leaving a trace of unease long after the sight ends. The houses in Snow Ridge stand stubbornly against the storm, roofs weighed down by ice, windows clouded with frost. Inside, the air is colder than the outside, as if the walls themselves hold memories of years long past. Footsteps echo across empty floors, yet the rooms remain deserted. Sometimes faint shapes appear behind curtains, only to vanish when approached, leaving only a whisper of movement behind. Paths through the village are treacherous, swallowed in drifts that rise like frozen waves. Each step sinks into soft powder, leaving a temporary trace that disappears with the next gust of wind. Travelers report a sense of being followed, fleeting impressions of shapes moving just beyond sight. The snow amplifies every sound, every creak of timber, until ordinary noises feel like something more. The cemetery is the heart of Snow Ridge's mystery. Tombstones lean and crack beneath the weight of winter. Visitors speak of figures gliding silently among the graves, their faces obscured, their presence solemn. Shadows gather at dusk, stretching longer than the sun allows, forming shapes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Some say the snow carries the stories of the lost, whispering their names to those willing to listen. Wildlife is scarce in the heavy cold, and the few creatures that remain seem. A fox might freeze mid-step, staring at an empty field, ears twitching as if. Locals who remain through the winter speak in hushed tones. They recount nights when the wind carries faint singing, old melodies long forgotten. Old melodies long forgotten. Lanterns swing in windows where no one resides. Shadows linger near fences and corners of the street, shifting and slipping away at the edge of vision. No one ventures out alone after dusk, yet some cannot resist the call of Snow Ridge, drawn by its frozen beauty and the secrets it holds beneath layers of ice and snow. The snow itself tells a story. Footprints appear and disappear, suggesting visitors who never arrive. Patterns form in drifts, shapes that hint at movement and intention. The wind sculpts the snow into haunting silhouettes, temporary monuments to something unseen. Travelers speak of sensation that someone or something is guiding their path, urging them forward or warning them back. As night falls, the village transforms. The cold deepens and shadows lengthen, merging with the snow into indistinguishable forms. The cemetery glows faintly under the moon, the headstones gleaming to the frost like teeth of the earth. Whispers intensify, carried by the wind, echoing from one grave to another. Some have reported seeing figures kneeling or wandering among the stones, paused as if in mourning or in search of something lost. Snow Ridge is more than a winter village. It is a place where memory and time linger, where the dead and the living seem to coexist just out of reach. Visitors leave with a sense of wonder, fear, and profound unease. The village does not reveal its secrets easily. It asks patience, observation, and respect for stillness that dominates every street, field, and cemetery. Even in the silence, Snow Ridge speaks. The snow drifts, the whispers flow, and the shadows move. Each visitor takes home a fragment of the mystery, a story that continues long after the frost melts, and the village disappears into memory. Those who return often find the whispers waiting, unchanged, carrying the names of the lost. Across endless fields of white, Frost Haven stands quietly at the edge of a dense forest, an abandoned settlement that time has forgotten. An abandoned settlement that time has forgotten. At its heart lies the old schoolhouse, a building of weathered brick and peeling paint. A building of weathered brick and peeling paint, where memories of lessons long past seem to linger in the air. Where memories of lessons long past seem to linger in the air. The windows are coated with frost in the winter months, or dust in the warmer seasons. Or dust in the warmer seasons, allowing only fragmented light to filter through. Allowing only fragmented light to filter through. Inside, the atmosphere is thick with the weight of history and a quiet, unexplainable presence that seems to inhabit every corner. And a quiet, unexplainable presence that seems to inhabit every corner. Visitors who enter the schoolhouse immediately sense the stillness, a silence that feels deliberate, as though the building itself is holding its breath. Desks and chairs, once occupied by generations of students, appear to shift subtly when no one is watching, moved ever so slightly as if invisible hands still attend a classroom. The floors creak underfoot, echoing faintly in empty hallways, while footsteps sometimes follow travelers from room to room, never overtaking them, yet never fading entirely. Each classroom tells a story of routines long abandoned. Chalkboards remain in place, streaked with faint half-erased writing, and books lie scattered on shelves, their pages yellow with age. Dust motes drift in shafts of light, moving as though stirred by a presence that is unseen. Visitors report the feeling of being observed, of eyes following them along the rows of desks. And while no living person is there, the sensation is unmistakable and persistent. The hallways stretch between classrooms, narrow and lined with lockers, their doors rattling occasionally with no discernible cause. The sound of shoes tapping along the floor sometimes echoes behind those who explore, yet when they turn, the corridor is empty. Doors open and close quietly, a movement so subtle that one might dismiss it as a wind, but repeated observation suggests otherwise. Every corner of the schoolhouse holds a hint of life that cannot be explained, a memory of presence that remains even after the last student is long gone. In the main hall, light filters through tall, grimy windows, casting long shadows across the worn floorboards. The air carries the faint scent of old wood and paper, mingled with a cold draft that seeps through cracks in the walls. Visitors often pause here, feeling a sudden chill, as though the building itself has exhaled. The silence amplifies even the smallest sounds, and the slightest movement of desks or chairs is heightened into an unmistakable sign that something unseen lingers among the familiar fixtures of education. The slightest movement of desks or chairs is heightened into an unmistakable sign that something unseen lingers among the familiar fixtures of education. Upstairs, the classrooms are smaller, more intimate, yet the sense of presence grows stronger. Footsteps that seem to circle the rooms echo along the halls, pausing momentarily outside doors before fading away. Chairs sometimes shift positions, leaving no evidence of human interaction. Even the most skeptical observers cannot deny the sense of life that inhabits these spaces, a life that is quiet, subtle, and entirely untraceable. The library remains a particular focal point for the inexplicable. Books lie open on tables, pages ruffled as if read moments before, though no visitor has touched them. The temperature dips noticeably, and whispers, faint and indistinct, are reported by those who linger long enough. The sound is never coherent, yet it carries the weight of familiarity, as though the building recalls names, lessons, and conversations from decades past. Shadows move across shelves without source, and the air feels charged with anticipation, as though the library is waiting for someone to continue the stories it holds. Frost Haven itself seems to embrace the schoolhouse, surrounding it with stillness and isolation. The wind through the trees carries the faint echoes of laughter, footsteps, and the rustle of paper, blending with the sounds that emerge from within the walls. Visitors note that even after leaving the village, the sensation of being followed persists, a subtle awareness that the old schoolhouse continues to watch, to remember, and to hold on to fragments of its past. Exploring the building requires patience and attentiveness. Every hallway, every classroom, and every corner holds layers of history and mystery, where ordinary objects appear animated by unseen forces. Chairs shift, desks creak, and doors respond as though acknowledging the presence of guests. The sensation is neither hostile nor threatening. It is as if the schoolhouse retains the habits of those who once filled its rooms, a lingering energy that quietly asserts itself in small, uncanny ways. The atmosphere within is one of paradoxical familiarity and unease. The schoolhouse is a place of learning and routine, yet it has become a stage for the unexplained. Visitors describe a sense of connection, a bridge between the living and the echoes of past lives. The air is heavy with the weight of memory, and the building itself seems to pulse with a quiet, deliberate energy, as if encouraging observers to notice what might otherwise be overlooked. As the day wanes and shadows lengthen, Frost Haven takes on a spectral beauty. Shafts of light fall through dusty windows, illuminating empty desks and long-forgotten classrooms. Footsteps, whispers, and the subtle movement of objects continue, inviting visitors to engage with the space, to feel the presence of those who have not fully departed. The schoolhouse remains a living archive of human experience, suspended in time, where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist. Frost Haven, and its old schoolhouse at the center, endures as a place of quiet mystery. Every visitor leaves with impressions that cannot be easily explained, senses heightened by the subtle interactions of sound, movement, and atmosphere. The building watches and waits, a custodian of memory, a host of echoes, and a reminder that some places hold on to their stories long after those who created them are gone. Even in its silence, the schoolhouse speaks. Desks and chairs remain. Footsteps continue to trace invisible paths. And the air carries whispers of a history that refuses to be forgotten. Frost Haven invites exploration, reflection, and reverence, offering a glimpse into a space where the past is never truly gone, and where every visitor becomes part of the ongoing presence that defines the village and its enigmatic heart. Ice Stone sits frozen in time, a town swallowed by winter and left with quiet of ice and snow. Streets that once carried the rhythms of daily life are now covered in thick layers of frost, and the air is sharp with the scent of cold. Abandoned storefronts line the main road, their windows cracked and frosted over, revealing glimpses of forgotten goods and dusty shelves. And the air is sharp with the scent of cold. The town square, once the heart of community gatherings, is empty and rigid under a heavy blanket of snow. Snowdrifts form strange patterns along the edges of the square, shifting subtly in the wind, as if the town itself breathes beneath the white veil. Walking through ice stone, visitors report a peculiar sensation, a feeling of being watched. Eyes seem to linger in the shadows of empty buildings, and every turn brings a sense that something or someone remains just out of sight. The air carries a faint murmur, like the echo of voices long gone, riding on the icy wind through narrow alleyways. Side streets reveal homes buried nearly to their windowsills. Roofs sag under the weight of heavy snow, and doors hang crooked on their hinges. Faint tracks appear in the freshly fallen snow, leading from one house to another, only to vanish at the edge of the forest. Some say these tracks belong to spirits that have never left, wandering to the town in silent loops, keeping watch over what was once theirs. The atmosphere in Ice Stone is both haunting and mesmerizing. The quiet is deep, but it is not empty. The wind sometimes carries the laughter of children, high and fleeting, bouncing across rooftops and frozen streets. It is impossible to tell if the sounds are memories, echoes of the past, or something else entirely. Each gust seems to carry fragments of stories, fragments of lives interrupted by sudden departures and unexplainable vanishings. In the center of the town, an old general store stands with its windows frosted in intricate patterns. Inside, shelves sag under the weight of dust and forgotten objects. Visitors have reported feeling a chill heavier than the surrounding cold, as if the store itself remembers the lives that passed through its doors. Shadows appear in the corners, moving just beyond the range of vision, leaving an impression of presence without form. The houses along the side streets offer glimpses of daily life frozen in time. Curtains flutter in the wind despite broken windows. Chairs remain pulled out from tables, and toys lie scattered on the floors. Some claim to hear soft footsteps pacing across empty rooms, following them from room to room, stopping abruptly when noticed. Others swear that if they listen closely, they can hear the whisper of names, called long ago but never answered. The forest bordering Ice Stone add a layer of isolation to the town. Dark trees rise from snow-covered ground, their branches scraping the sky like skeletal fingers. Pathways through the woods are obscured by snow, yet footprints appear here and there, leading to the town and vanishing without explanation. The forest feels alive with quiet observation, as though it has absorbed the energy of the town and its stories, keeping them hidden beneath layers of ice and shadow. Ice Stone's history is etched into the frozen landscape. Decades ago, families vanished without warning, leaving behind homes, stores, and belongings. Storms came suddenly, but the disappearances were not always blamed on the weather. Some were never found, their absence marking the town with a subtle, persistent tension. Over time, residents left in search of warmth and safety, leaving behind structures that hold the echoes of lives interrupted. Even in daylight, the town casts long shadows over snow-laden streets. Icicles hang like glass daggers from rooftops, and snow forms soft ridges along fences and broken paths. Light glimmers faintly off frozen surfaces, lending the town an ethereal quality that is both beautiful and unsettling. Every object, every building seems to tell a story, though it is one half hidden by frost and silence. Exploring Ice Stone evokes both awe and unease. Each footstep echoes in narrow alleyways. Each gust of wind carries unseen movements, and every frozen window seems to conceal watching figures. Visitors leave feeling the weight of history and memory, pressing gently but firmly on the imagination, as if it lingers in the mind long after departure. The town is quiet, yet it is impossible to forget once seen, as if it lingers in the mind long after departure. As evening falls, shadows deepen and the wind grows colder. The laughter of children, if heard at all, becomes fainter, slipping into the folds of the night. Snow swirls in silent patterns across the square, and the empty streets seem to stretch endlessly, awaiting new stories to mingle with the old. Figures at windows, if they appear, remain motionless, watching, waiting, and reminding those who wander that Ice Stone is not entirely empty. Ice Stone endures as a place of frozen memory. It is a town where snow buries life, yet never fully erases it. Its abandoned streets, frosted storefronts, and icy square hold the whispers of the past, and those who visit find themselves walking through more than a landscape of ice. They walk through history, presence, and memory, where the cold is not only felt, but remembered by everything around it. And as darkness settles over the town, the question remains with anyone who enters its frozen streets. Wintercross lies buried beneath a thick, unbroken blanket of snow, a village frozen in silence and time. The landscape stretches endlessly, trees bowed under heavy white, and fields erased beneath the icy shroud. Even the wind moves cautiously here, carrying whispers of the past that seem almost alive and quiet. The wind moves cautiously here, carrying whispers of the past that seem almost alive and quiet. Paths wind through the village, but some remain unnaturally clear, as if someone or something maintains them. Footsteps sink into fresh snow alongside these clear trails, yet the prints vanish without explanation, leaving only the stark emptiness behind. Travelers who wander the roads report a strange sensation of being watched, though when they turn, no one is there. The homes of Wintercross are scattered across the snow-covered terrain, their roofs heavy with frost, windows opaque with ice. Many are abandoned, their interiors dark and cold, yet some visitors speak of doors creaking open on their own, the sound echoing in empty rooms. Others have reported seeing the faint glow of candlelight or lanterns flicker within houses that should not hold fire or warmth. Figures sometimes appear at the edge of vision, just beyond direct sight. They vanish the moment they are looked at fully, leaving an unsettling emptiness in their place. Some describe shadowy silhouettes moving with purpose, yet their movements feel both deliberate and impossible, as though they belong to a world just beyond human perception. The village itself seems suspended between worlds, neither fully abandoned nor alive. The forest at the edge of Wintercross presses close, its skeletal trees forming a natural wall that seems to contain the village. The snow drifts deep and near the forest line, swallowing fences and outbuildings, and the air grows sharper, more insistent. Here, the silence is heavier, almost tangible, as if the snow itself holds its breath. Visitors often feel the cold more acutely in certain parts of the village, sudden chills that rise from the ground or brush past the neck unexpectedly. Some claim to feel a presence beside them while walking along narrow streets, only to find empty snow in every direction. The sensation is fleeting yet persistent, leaving a lingering unease that follows long after the visitor leaves. The old church at the center of Wintercross stands as a testament to lives once lived. Its steeple rises above surrounding snow, weathered and gray, and inside, pews are lined with thick layer of frost. Even in the dead of day, a faint echo of footsteps can be heard along the aisles, though no one walks there. Some visitors report hearing the soft creak of doors or the rustle of clothing, as though the congregation has never truly departed. At night, the village transforms. Moonlight glints off the snow, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to move independently. Windows reflect shapes that are never present, and the air is filled with the sound of wind slipping through broken shutters. Those who have stayed overnight speak of sudden movements, glimpses of figures that dart behind trees or across open fields, and the feeling of being followed without a trace. Those who have stayed overnight speak of sudden movements, glimpses of figures that dart behind trees or across open fields, and the feeling of being followed without a trace. Those who have stayed overnight speak of sudden movements, glimpses of figures that dart behind trees or across open fields, and the feeling of being followed without a trace. The frozen creek that runs near the village provides its own mysteries. In summer, it carried water to community, a lifeline for both people and animals. Now, a thick layer of ice covers it, smooth and unbroken, yet visitors swear they've seen ripples, as though something beneath is moving, watching, or waiting. The sound of cracking ice echoes faintly, but no one can locate its source. Barns and outbuildings scattered throughout Wintercross contain remnants of daily life, frozen in time. Rusted tools lie half buried in snow, and wagons stand abandoned, their wheels encased in ice. Some visitors claim to hear the faint clatter of metal, as if the tools are being used by invisible hands. Others feel a sudden brush against their shoulder, leaving no sign of a passerby. Even in daylight, Wintercross retains an eerie stillness, a quiet that feels purposeful. Snow muffles sound, yet the smallest noises stand out sharply. Footsteps, branches breaking, the distant call of a crow. Each sound seems magnified, as though the village is attuned to every movement, observing, noting, and remembering. The allure of Wintercross is both mysterious and irresistible. Those who visit often return multiple times, drawn by the village's silent stories and hidden histories. They walk its snow-covered lanes, peer into abandoned homes, and stand at the edge of the creek, feeling a connection to something larger than themselves, something that transcends the ordinary world. Wintercross is more than a place. It is an experience, a living memory suspended in ice and silence. The village preserved the echoes of life, the presence of those who once walked its streets, and a lingering impression of stories unfinished. Each visitor leaves an awareness that the village is not entirely empty, that it watches, waits, and remembers. Walking through Wintercross, one senses the delicate balance between past and present, life and memory. The snow may cover everything, yet cannot erase the traces left behind. Shadows move just beyond sight, doors creak in empty houses, and the wind carries the hushed remnants of countless lives. For those who brave its frozen paths, the village offers both beauty and unease. The glimmer of sunlight on snow, the stark outlines of skeletal trees, the smooth surface of ice on the creek, all create a landscape of quiet majesty and haunting stillness. Wintercross never reveals all its secrets. Some paths remain clear for unknown reasons. Some lights flicker without source, and some figures appear only to vanish. Yet for those willing to explore, it offers a profound connection to a place where memory lingers and silence is alive. And as visitors leave, stepping back into the warmth of the outside world, they carry with them a lingering question. What truly inhabits Wintercross? And why does it insist on making its presence known to those who walk its snow-covered streets? Ghost Pine lies deep within a forest that time seems to have forgotten. Snow blankets the ground, weighing down the limbs of towering pines and draping the village in quiet isolation. The paths between them are narrow and winding, filled with snow that rises like frozen waves, swallowing every trace of footsteps and leaving the village seemingly untouched. The air carries a sharp, biting cold that seeps into bones and lingers long after leaving the village. Travelers speak of a silence that is almost unnatural, broken only by the occasional groan of timber under the weight of ice. Even the wind seems hesitant here, moving with a slow, deliberate rhythm that adds to the sense of stillness. Among the snow-laden trees, shadows flit, moving in ways that defy natural expectation, disappearing when approached, leaving only a faint disturbance in the pristine white. Visitors have reported hearing chains rattling in the windless cold, faint at first, then growing more distinct. Some say the sound comes from the edge of the woods, where the snow is deepest, while others claim it drifts through the center of the village, echoing off the abandoned cabins and sawmills. The source is never visible, yet the sound carries weight, as though it belongs to something once human, now something else entirely. The houses of Ghost Pine are remnants of a bygone era, their structures telling stories of hard labor and long winters. Sheds lean against each other for support, and barns sag under layers of snow. Doors creak on their hinges without cause, and windows reflect faint shapes that vanish when examined closely. The smell of damp wood and cold stone permeates the air, grounding the village in a quiet, eerie reality. Footpaths between the buildings are marked by impressions in the snow that seem both fresh and impossibly old. Observers have described the sensation of being followed, glimpsing movements just beyond sight. Glimpses of figures with indistinct forms that vanish when noticed directly. These figures, silent and fleeting, seem to carry the weight of memory and sorrow, echoing the lives that once thrived here. The forest surrounding Ghost Pine contributes to its haunting atmosphere. Pines tower like silent sentinels, their needles brushing against each other in a whispering chorus. The snow muffles almost every sound, making ordinary noises sharp and startling. Occasionally, the crunch of footsteps in the distance or a sudden snap of a branch sends a shiver through those who venture near. Wildlife is scarce, and those who remain speak of a stillness that seems to watch, a quiet expectation that something may emerge from the shadows at any moment. At night, Ghost Pine transforms into a different world entirely. The moonlight casts long, skeletal shadows across the snow, elongating the shapes of trees and buildings. The chains, if heard, grow louder in the cold stillness, clanging with a rhythm that feels almost deliberate. Shapes drift across the clearing, almost human in form, yet moving with fluidity that hints at something unearthly. Lanterns, if left behind by the long-gone residents, glow faintly and flicker without any wind, casting light on snowdrift that gleam like glass. The village tells a story through its silence. Each building, each tree, and every frozen path holds memories of a time when Ghost Pine was alive with labor, laughter, and the daily struggle against the harsh elements. Now, the memories linger in the air like frozen smoke, visible only in the disturbances of snow and shadow. Travelers often leave with a sense of awe mixed with unease, carrying the impression that Ghost Pine is less a place and more a living echo of the past. Snow falls steadily, smoothing the ground and blurring the edges of reality. The villagers who once called Ghost Pine home are gone, yet something of them remains. Whispers of their presence drift across the snow in the form of fleeting sounds, shadows at the periphery of vision, and the cold weight that settles on the shoulders of visitors. Even in the daylight, Ghost Pine feels alive in its own way. The forest creaks and sways, and the snow reflects light, in a way that seems to shimmer with intention. Travelers report the sensation of being guided along paths they did not choose, led toward old cabins or mills that seem impossibly intact amidst the decay. Every step carries the possibility of a glimpse into the Village's past, a hint of the lives that existed before silence took hold. As the sun sets, the village grows colder and darker. Shadows lengthen, merging with the snow to form shapes that feel almost human. The chains can be heard once more, echoing as though tracing old routes through the village. Figures appear in fleeting glimpses, trudging through drifts or standing at the edge of the forest, watching silently. The forest closes in, creating a sense of intimacy and exposure at once, reminding every visitor that they are far from the world of warmth and movement. Ghost Pine exists as a place of memory and mystery, frozen in time yet alive with the remnants of its past. Visitors leave carrying impressions of shapes, sounds, and sensations that linger long after returning to warmth and light. It is a village of whispers, shadows, and frozen stories, a place where the past refuses to be forgotten, and the present is never quite certain. The snow continues to fall, covering paths and footprints, yet never erasing the essence of Ghost Pine from the minds of those who dare to wander through its silent, haunted embrace. Frostburn lies nestled in a remote valley, a village abandoned to snow and silence. Its wooden buildings lean under the weight of years and harsh winters, and the landscape is blanketed in frost that glimmers in the weak sunlight. At the heart of the settlement stands a general store, once the hub of trade and conversation, now a silent monument to lives interrupted. The structure still holds old crates, worn shelves, and wooden counters. Yet visitors quickly sense that the space is not entirely empty. The air inside the store carries a chill that seems to settle deeper than the winter outside. Dust hangs in the light that filters through cracked windows, moving gently as if stirred by invisible hands. Some have glimpsed fleeting silhouettes, shadows that vanish the instant one turns, leaving only the faint impression of movement in the corner of the eye. Every corner of the store suggests a story paused mid-motion. Wooden crates remain stacked as they were decades ago. jars of dried goods and canned supplies coated in frost and dust. Counters show scratches and wear from decades of use. Yet there is an energy in the room that hints at continued activity, subtle and unexplainable. Items occasionally shift from where they were left. Outside, the wind carries a whisper of old tales, the kind that have been passed along for generations. It speaks of traders who vanished suddenly in storms that rolled down from the mountains, swallowed by snow and cold before anyone could find them. Some claim that their spirits linger, bound to the place where they worked and lived, caught between the past and the present, still moving through the spaces they once occupied. The general store seems to act as a focal point for these lingering presences, a stage where history and the supernatural intersect. Exploring the building requires caution and observation. Shelves groan under the weight of abandoned goods, and wooden floors creak in ways that suggest someone else has walked there moments before. Shadows seem to bend differently in certain corners, and the temperature fluctuates suddenly, dipping into icy cold or rising briefly without cause. Whispers drift through the air, unintelligible at first, but carrying an unmistakable sense of warning or remembrance, as if the store itself remembers the people who once moved through it. The counter draws particular attention. Its polished surface shows wear and scuff from decades of transactions, and yet some visitors have seen the impression of someone standing behind it, a form vanishing when approached. Light shifts strangely here, as if reflecting off something unseen, and the air holds a tension that feels almost alive. Small details reinforce the sensation. A jar tilting slightly, a crate moved just enough to suggest hands that cannot be seen, and the subtle scent of smoke or spices that is not from the present day. Even the quiet moments in Frostburn carry a sense of presence. The wind outside is relentless, whistling through gaps in the walls and around the roof. Yet inside, it is only a whisper, carrying the faint echoes of conversation and trade long past. Some visitors have sat quietly, waiting, and report hearing the creak of a door, the soft shuffle of boots, or the rustle of paper and cloth, only to find the store empty. Each sound seems deliberate, part of a rhythm that belongs to the invisible denizens of the building. The surrounding village enhances the eerie atmosphere. Snow drifts along empty streets, piling against abandoned homes and barns. Footprints appear and vanish without explanation, and the wind carries distant sounds that mimic voices or laughter. Travelers report the sensation of being followed, not by a living presence, but by the memories embedded in the landscape, impressions of the people and animals that once populated Frostburn. The general store stands at the center of this network of memory, a focal point where human history and the supernatural converge. Light plays a critical role in the perception of the store. Morning sun filters through frost-covered panes, casting jagged patterns across the floor, while shadows seem to shift subtly with the movement of invisible forms. Afternoon light illuminates shelves and counters, yet corners remain impossibly dark, hiding movement just out of view. At dusk, the building becomes a stage for contrast, with golden light brushing the worn wood and dark shadows stretching across the interior, enhancing the feeling that the past and present coexist within its walls. Visitors often leave Frostburn with a mixture of awe and unease. The general store, with its lingering presences, shifted items, and fleeting silhouettes, where lives interrupted continue in faint echoes. Some speak of a connection to the vanished traders, a sense of understanding or recognition that transcends explanation. Others report only the chill of the air and the soft sound that seem almost alive, reminders that the building itself holds onto memory and presence with quiet insistence. Frostburn is a place of contrasts, beauty and desolation, silence and subtle activity. The general store anchors the village, a repository of history and haunting alike. Every creak, shadow, and whisper adds to the story of lives interrupted by the unforgiving elements, lives that remain etched into the very wood and stone of the building. The village, the wind, and the store together form a living memory, inviting those who visit to step cautiously and observe carefully, for every sound and movement carries significance. Even after leaving, visitors often carry the sense that the store continues to function without them, Crates remain stacked, counters still stand polished in memory. And the faint traces of presence follow long after the snow has melted or the wind has shifted. Frost burn and its general store endure as a monument to human endeavor, to the sudden and unexplained, and to the enduring whispers of those who vanish yet remain, silently moving through the spaces they once called home. Winter mist lies shrouded in a veil of fog and snow, a village suspended between reality and memory. The landscape is muted, the colors softened by frost and mist, yet the town feels alive in ways that are difficult to describe. Shadows stretch across snow-laden streets, and the air carries a faint, elusive scent of pine and cold stone. The main road winds through abandoned cottages and silent shops, their roofs bowed under layers of ice. Footsteps echo faintly on snow-covered pathways, though no one is ever in sight. The wind carries a soft, insistent whisper, making the village seem less empty than it appears. Walking through winter mist is like stepping into a painting in motion. Figures sometimes emerge across open fields, gliding silently against a backdrop of snow and fog. They pause when noticed, then vanish without a trace, leaving only footprints that quickly fade. The village seems to breathe around them, its history and secrets palpable in the icy air. The old schoolhouse sits at the edge of town, its doors hanging on broken hinges. Inside, dust coats the desks and the chalkboards are streaked with the faint remains of lessons long forgotten. Visitors sometimes report hearing the soft creak of floorboards, though the rooms remain empty. The building seems attuned to those who enter, a witness to lives once lived and stories left unfinished. In the town square, the fountain is frozen solid, its waters transformed into crystal ridges. Snow gathers in delicate mounds along its edges, and the surrounding benches are buried beneath thick drifts. Occasionally, faint music can be heard drifting across the square, a melody from long-collapsed buildings. It is soft and distant, yet it hangs in the air like a memory, refusing to fade. Side streets reveal homes partially hidden by high snowbanks. Curtains flutter in broken windows. Chairs remain pulled out from tables, and hearths lie cold and unused. Some visitors feel sudden chills or hear whispers, as though the village itself is acknowledging their presence. Every building, every doorway, seems to hold a fragment of the past, waiting to be noticed. The forest bordering winter mist adds an additional layer of mystery. Tall trees rise starkly against the pale sky, their branches scraping one another in the wind. Snow conceals paths beneath the trees, yet occasional tracks appear, leading from the woods to the village and back again. Occasional tracks appear, leading from the woods to the village and back again. The forest feels watchful, its silence heavy but alive, as if it guards a town and its lingering secrets. Winter mist is a place where fog and snow transform the ordinary into something uncanny. Shapes shift in the mist, and distant sounds take on strange qualities. A falling branch can sound like a footstep, and the wind can carry laughter that may or may not be real. Visitors often describe a sensation of being observed, a subtle awareness that they are not alone, even when no one else is visible. The history of winter mist is etched into the landscape itself. Families once lived here in close-knit harmony, but sudden storms and harsh winters left their mark. Some residents disappeared during blizzards, never to return. Others left in search of warmth and safety, abandoning homes and streets that would slowly be reclaimed by snow and ice. The village remembers, and it whispers, preserving fragments of life in every corner. Exploring winter mist evokes both wonder and unease. Each step through its fields and streets carries a weight of countless untold stories. The fog softens the edges of buildings and trees, yet highlights the contrast between life and absence. The village seems to respond to those who wander within it, offering glimpses of figures, sounds, and movements that defy explanation but feel deeply familiar. As daylight fades, the village transforms again. Shadows lengthen across snow-covered roofs, and the fog thickens, swallowing shapes and sounds. Figures in the fields become harder to discern, appearing only as flickers of movement before dissolving into mist. The music from old buildings rises faintly on the wind, haunting and beautiful, lingering just beyond the reach of comprehension. Winter Mist endures as a place of frozen memory and quiet presence. The combination of fog, snow, and silence creates a landscape that is simultaneously inviting and unsettling. Visitors leave with a sense of having stepped into something larger than themselves, a place where the past and present converge, and where the village continues to live through the stories it carries in every shadow, every gust of wind, and every fleeting melody. And as night falls, the question remains with all who enter Winter Mist. Are the figures in the fields the echoes of those who once lived? Or are they glimpses of the village itself, moving and breathing, never truly still? Icefall sits perched at the edge of the frozen wilderness, a village trapped in a permanent winter. Snow blankets the landscape in thick, unbroken layers, and the air is heavy with stillness. The homes, once filled with life, now stand frozen in mid-collapse, their roofs sagging under the weight of ice and years of neglect. Every structure tells a story of abrupt departure, of lives paused without warning. Visitors who venture into Icefall often feel a sharp chill that seems to penetrate beyond clothing, a cold that carries with it the weight of history. As they walk along the narrow paths, snow crunching beneath their feet, they sometimes hear voices echoing from nowhere, urgent and fleeting, calling out warnings that vanish as quickly as they arrive. The village is eerily silent in other ways. No birds call from the trees, no animals stir in the underbrush. The only sound is the wind sweeping across frozen roofs and through broken windows. Yet within this silence, there is an undercurrent of presence, subtle and persistent, as though the village itself observes every step taken across its icy streets. Footsteps follow visitors through the snow, light and untraceable. No footprints mark the path, yet the impression of being accompanied remains. A reminder that Icefall is not entirely empty. Some describe the sensation of being guided, or sometimes warned by forces unseen, their presence felt rather than seen. The homes are haunting in their frozen decay. Timber frames jut from walls cracked and splintered, and windows are opaque with frost. Inside, furniture lies buried under snowdrifts that have crept through broken doors. Visitors often report hearing the soft scrape of wood, as if objects are shifting in the cold. Yet when they investigate, the rooms are empty. Shadows play across walls where sunlight falls, creating fleeting shapes that vanish when approached. The heart of Icefall is its central square, a place that once hosted markets and gatherings, now silent and buried under snow. Signs hang crooked from posts, and the remnants of a fountain are capped with ice, frozen mid-splash. On clear nights, moonlight casts long, distorted shadows across the square, amplifying the sense that time has stopped here entirely. The creek that winds through the village has become a ribbon of ice, smooth and glimmering, reflecting the pale winter sky. Some travelers have reported seeing ripples along the surface, subtle distortions in the frozen water, as if something beneath moves unseen. The sound of cracking ice can carry over the snow, startling and precise, though its origin is impossible to locate. Near the outskirts, the forest presses close, snow-laden trees forming walls that hem in the village. Here, the cold feels sharper, the silence more profound. Footsteps seem amplified, each crunch echoing unnaturally. Some visitors claim to have glimpsed figures at the tree line, standing motionless, only to vanish when approached. The sense of being watched, followed, or even guided intensifies in these areas. Nightfall and Icefall transforms the village into something otherworldly. The moon glints off icicles hanging from eaves, casting prismatic light across the streets. Windows glow faintly, though no source is visible. Sound of doors creaking open, floors settling, and voices murmuring in languages or tones long forgotten. The barns and outbuildings are particularly haunting. Rusted farm equipment lies half buried in snow, wheels frozen in place. Some visitors hear the faint scrape of metal on wood, the sound of tools in motion despite the emptiness. Others feel a sudden brush against their arm or shoulder, chilling yet brief, leaving no trace of presence. Even during the day, The village exudes a strange stillness. Snow muffles all sound, yet every small noise stands out sharply. The snapping of a branch, the distant call of a crow, or the settling of ice in a roof creates an almost tangible tension. Each sound feels deliberate, a subtle reminder that icefall is not entirely still, that the past continues to echo in the present. Exploring icefall is a delicate balance between curiosity and caution. The village holds fragments of countless lives, memories preserved in frost, waiting for those willing to step carefully among them. The village is more than frozen buildings and snow-covered streets. It is a living memory, a place where absence carries weight, and the boundary between past and present is thin. The sounds, shadows, and sensations encountered here are subtle yet insistent, inviting contemplation and reflection. Each visitor experiences icefall differently, yet all report a sense of connection to what once was, and a quiet understanding that the village watches and remembers. Walking through icefall, one cannot help but notice the interplay of beauty and unease. Snow sparkles like crystal in the moonlight. Trees are outlined in frosty lace, and the air is sharp and clear. Yet beneath the serene surface lies a constant tension, the reminder that the village is haunted not by malice, but by memory, by lives suspended in time and preserved in ice. As travelers leave, stepping back into the warmth of the outside world, the village remains behind, unchanged yet alive in its own way. The frozen homes, the silent square, and the icy creek continue to hold their secrets. Footsteps may echo without trace, voices may call out warnings, and figures may linger at the edge of vision. But icefall remains, an eternal winter suspended between the world that was and the quiet stillness that endures. And for those who have walked its streets, the lingering question persists. What truly inhabits icefall, and why does it insist on making itself felt to anyone who dares to cross its frozen threshold? Shiverbrook rests in the shadow of dense forests and snow-capped hills, a village that winter seems to have claimed as its own. The wind moves constantly through the streets and fields, carried with its stories of past lives, whispered memories that drift over frozen ground. Every gust seems to speak, soft and urgent, as if recounting the lives that once filled this place with warmth and motion. The buildings are long abandoned, their wooden frames weathered and bowed by decades of ice and snow. Frozen wells and empty barns hold shadows that watch silently, shapes that seem to move just beyond the edge of vision. Each structure tells a story, from the sagging roof of a farmhouse to the tilted planks of a forgotten barn, hinting at the labor and lives once devoted to this frozen landscape. Visitors speak of a stillness that is almost unnatural, a quiet that presses on the mind as much as the ears. Every step crunches in the snow, a sound that seems impossibly loud against a pervasive silence. Sometimes, fleeting shapes move across the fields, disappearing when observed directly. Shadows stretch and twist in the fading light, forming vague silhouettes that suggest the presence of watchers long gone. The forest surrounding Shiverbrook enhances the feeling of isolation. Pines and firs stand tall, their branches heavy with snow. Even in the windless calm, the trees seem to whisper and creak, as if acknowledging the secrets buried beneath the frozen earth. Snow drifts between trunks, shaping pathways and barriers that alter with each passing gust. Some report seeing lights flickering in abandoned homes. The glow is faint, almost spectral, illuminating windows with a hesitant warmth. Lanterns swing without cause, reflecting on ice and snow, creating illusions of movement inside rooms long empty. The light seems purposeful, as if trying to attract attention, but when approached, it disappears, leaving only the hollow darkness behind. The village is a maze of forgotten paths, each turn revealing new corners of decay and quiet beauty. Wooden fences lean and bow beneath the weight of frost. Narrow alleys twist between snow-covered buildings, and frozen rivers carve slow, glistening paths through the valley. Footprints appear and vanish without explanation, as though Shiverbrook itself rearranges its story for each visitor. For each visitor, Shiverbrook itself. Shiverbrook, itself rearranges its story. For each visitor, Shiverbrook itself rearranges its story for each visitor. The cemetery at the edge of the village is a silent witness. Headstones rise from the snow at odd angles, etched with names and dates slowly fading under frost. Some claim to see figures moving among the graves at twilight, shadows kneeling or walking slowly, always just beyond the edge of clarity. The wind carries their names, whispers that mingle with the cold and snow, leaving a sense of reverence and unease in those who listen closely. As night falls, the village transforms. Shadows lengthen, merging with the darkness of the forest and snow-covered streets. The frozen wells glimmer faintly under moonlight, their surfaces reflecting shapes that seem to swim just beneath. Barns and houses cast long, skeletal forms across the snow, creating a labyrinth of light and shadow. The wind intensifies, carrying sound that might be footsteps, whispers, or simply the sigh of ice and timber under stress. The cold in Shiverbrook feels alive. It creeps along every surface, settling into the spaces between snow and wood, and into the bones of those who wander here. It is a weight that presses on thought and motion, urging careful steps and heightened awareness. Visitors often speak of a sense of being watched, a feeling that the village itself holds its breath, observing every movement, every hesitation. Even in daylight, the village maintains its haunting presence. Snow reflects the pale light in ways that create fleeting illusions of motion. Shadows move faster than expected, flicker at the edge of vision, and leave impressions that vanish when confronted. The wind carries sounds, faint chains of the scrape of timber, blending with natural noises to form an ever-present soundtrack of unease. The wind carries sounds, faint chains of the scrape of timber, blending with natural noises to form an ever-present soundtrack of unease. The forest edges seem to close in at times, narrowing the paths and creating moments of both intimacy and exposure. Figures emerge for a heartbeat, a fleeting glimpse of a presence that moves among the trees or along snow-laden paths. Shiverbrook exists as both a place and a feeling. It is frozen in time, yet alive with echoes of the past. Every building, field, and tree carries a story, and each visitor leaves with fragments of those stories embedded in memory. The lights, shadows, and whispers remain long after leaving, forming an invisible connection between the present and the lives that once defined this village. The snow continues to fall, smoothing paths, covering footprints, and altering the landscape with quiet precision. Yet no amount of snow can erase the presence that lingers here. The whispers persist, the shadows remain, and the lights flicker in rooms long empty. It is a place where the past waits patiently, and the present cannot fully escape its grasp. The wind moves on, carrying the stories of Shiverbrook across the valley, leaving behind a village frozen in both silence and life. Across the valley, leaving behind a village frozen in both silence and life. Leaving behind a village frozen in both silence and life. A village frozen in both silence and life. Those who enter may feel a chill that is more than cold, an awareness that some things remain unseen, watching, waiting. An awareness that some things remain unseen, watching, waiting. The snow drifts, the shadows move, and the whispers continue, ensuring that Shiverbrook, though abandoned, is never truly empty. Ensuring that Shiverbrook, though abandoned, is never truly empty. Cold water rests in a frozen valley. A village once alive with a hum of daily life, now silenced beneath layers of snow and ice. Buildings lean under the weight of years and harsh winters, their roofs sagging and windows frosted over, offering only fragmented glimpses of the interiors. Streets that once echoed with laughter and footsteps are now quiet, save for the occasional crunch of snow under the boots of those brave enough to explore. The village is not merely abandoned. It is suspended in time, a frozen memory that holds both beauty and unease. Visitors stepping into cold water often feel a sudden chill, more profound than the winter air outside. The cold seems to seep into their very bones, accompanied by a subtle awareness of being observed. The sensation is fleeting yet persistent, as if invisible eyes trace their movements along snow-covered streets. Some have reported hearing voices drifting from rooftops, soft and unintelligible, calling out across the empty village. Yet when they look up, the snow-covered roofs remain empty and still. The buildings themselves tell stories of a life that was abruptly interrupted. Wooden shutters hang crooked. Doors sway gently in the wind, and the occasional broken sign swings on rusted hinges. Inside, furniture lies scattered and coated with frost, remnants of daily life frozen in place. Each room carries a weight of memory, and those who linger report feeling the faint pressure of presence, as if someone is just beyond sight, observing silently. Footsteps echo in hallways long abandoned, and the faint creak of what underweight that is not theirs reinforces a sense of village still inhabited by shadows of the past. Cold water streets wind unevenly between structures, the layout frozen as it was decades ago. Snow drifts across empty pathways, forming natural barricades, while ice glints under the weak sun, creating illusions of movement. Travelers note subtle disturbances in the snow, footprints appearing and disappearing without explanation. Even when the wind falls silent, the village retains a quiet energy, a rhythm of soundless activity that suggests life continues in forms unseen. The village square offers a stark contrast to the surrounding silence. A lone fountain, its basin cracked and frozen, stands at the center, an old lamppost tilted against the snowdrifts. Visitors have described hearing whispers emanating from these open spaces, faint and fragmented, like fragments of conversation carried on the wind. Sometimes, the voices appear to repeat names, calling to no one in particular. Yet the effect is unsettling, drawing attention to corners of the square that appear empty but never truly are. Homes along the main street provide glimpses of Coldwater's past. Inside, fireplaces remain cold, their hearths lined with ash that has not been disturbed in years. Chairs sit in rigid rows. Tables bear the remnants of meals long finished, and the faint outlines of curtains ripple in drafts that seem to carry purpose. Shadows cling to corners and staircases, moving slightly when no one is watching, leaving the impression of lingering presence. Visitors describe the air as charged, the kind of atmosphere that makes even the bravest pause and listen, half expecting movement or sound confirm what they feel. The edges of the village meet the surrounding wilderness abruptly, snow-laden trees standing as silent sentinels. Wind funnels through narrow passages, carrying faint sounds from rooftops and alleyways, sounds that mimic the rhythm of human activity. Some have reported seeing silhouettes on upper floors, figures glimpsed through frosted windows before vanishing entirely. Others have felt the subtle pressure of air, as though someone or something has passed close enough to brush against them, yet no trace remains. Coldwater also holds the passage of time in its frozen details. Weathered signs hint at shops and services long forgotten, and Childrena-esque toys lie scattered beneath snowdrifts, partially buried yet intact. Childrena-esque toys lie scattered beneath snowdrifts, partially buried yet intact. Each object tells a story of a life interrupted, a community suddenly paused. Each object tells a story of a life interrupted, a community suddenly paused. Visitors report that these remnants seem to draw attention in unusual ways. Visitors report that these remnants seem to draw attention in unusual ways, guiding their gaze to areas where subtle activity occurs. Guiding their gaze to areas where subtle activity occurs. A rocking chair might sway gently. A door may creak open without wind. A rocking chair might sway gently. A door may creak open without wind, and the faint echo of footsteps may follow them from building to building. Evenings in Coldwater carry a heightened sense of mystery. As the sun sinks behind jagged peaks, shadows stretch unnaturally across streets and rooftops. The cold deepens, and the subtle sound of movement become more pronounced. Footsteps echo along alleys. Whispers rise and fall with the wind, and the stillness of the snow amplifies every tiny noise. Those who stay long enough begin to sense a rhythm to these occurrences, a pattern that suggests the village itself is alive in a way that defies explanation, responding to the presence of visitors with gentle, eerie acknowledgement. Despite the chill, Coldwater attracts explorers, photographers, and those drawn to the unknown. Each visitor leaves with impressions that linger long after departure, an awareness that some form of life persists within the village. The interplay of sound, movement, and silence creates an environment where imagination and reality intertwine, leaving every guest to question what they saw, heard, or felt. The ghostly qualities of Coldwater are subtle yet powerful, creating a lasting memory of a place frozen in time, yet full of hidden motion. Coldwater remains a testament to lives interrupted, a village where snow and ice preserve not only structures, but also the echoes of human presence. It invites visitors to walk its streets cautiously, to listen closely, and to observe carefully, for every creak, whisper, and shifting shadow carries significance. The village holds onto its stories, and those who want to become part of the ongoing narrative, experiencing firsthand the quiet, spectral heartbeat of Coldwater. Long after footsteps fade and visitors leave, Coldwater endures, a frozen ghost town, where unseen observers linger on rooftops, shadows shift in empty rooms, and the wind continues to carry whispers of a vibrant past now captured in snow and ice. The village waits patiently, preserving its mysteries, offering both beauty and unease to those who venture into its frozen streets. The village waits patiently, preserving its mysteries, offering both beauty and unease to those who venture into its frozen streets. Snowbound lies trapped beneath a thick, unyielding blanket of snow. Roads vanish beneath drifting white. Barns and stables stand half buried, their roofs bowed under the weight of winter. The village seems frozen in time, a place where motion slows and silence dominates the landscape. Walking through Snowbound, the world feels both vast and intimate, a rhythm of ordinary days interrupted by storms and absence. Snow crunches underfoot, the sound sharp in the cold air. Every structure, from weathered wooden barns to abandoned homes, holds a memory of life once lived, a rhythm of ordinary days interrupted by storms and absence. Along the main road, paths that should be impassable appear to bear the tracks of movement. Figures are sometimes glimpsed walking along these snow-choked routes. They move slowly, deliberately, pausing as though aware of being watched. When approached, they vanish without a trace, leaving only disturbed snow and a lingering sense of presence. The barns and stables, half buried, evoke both nostalgia and unease. Rusted tools hang on sagging walls. Hay piles remain scattered and untouched, and the scent of winter cold mingles with the faint odor of animals long gone. Inside, shadows gather in corners, and some visitors feel the sensation of being observed, as though unseen eyes are following their every step. Abandoned homes line side streets, many leaning against the pressure of snowdrifts. Curtains flutter in broken windows, chairs remain tipped over, and hearts sit cold and unused. From time to time, old townsfolk are said to appear at these windows, waving silently as if greeting visitors or bidding farewell. Their forms are pale and ephemeral, visible only for moments before fading back into the winter landscape. The village square is quiet and still, dominated by a frozen fountain and snow-covered benches. The air carries a faint creak of ice and the occasional whisper of wind. Yet the space feels charged with history. Every building seems to hold a story, every doorway a memory. Visitors often describe a sensation of time bending here, as if the past and present are layered over one another, visible to those who walk carefully through the snow. Side paths lead to smaller cottages and sheds, each half buried and silent. Snow gathers in mounds along fences and around broken gates. Tracks appear from time to time, leading in directions that make no sense, vanishing at the edge of fields or into the forest. Some say these tracks are left by those who never left, guardians of the village frozen between life and memory. The forest at the edge of Snowbound adds its own mystery. Trees rise starkly against the gray winter sky, their branches scraping against one another in the wind. The snow beneath them is soft and deep, yet impressions appear as if something or someone has passed through. The forest feels alive with quiet observation, absorbing the energy of the village and the lives once lived there. Snowbound is not a place of fear, but of presence. Every sound is amplified in the cold stillness. Every movement carries significance. Visitors often report feeling watched. a quiet awareness that the village itself is attentive, holding them in the same way it holds the memories of the people who once lived there. The history of Snowbound is etched into every structure and pathway. Families once thrived here, cultivating fields and tending to livestock. Winters were harsh, yet the village endured. Then came storms and blizzards, sudden and relentless. Some residents disappeared in the whiteouts, never to be found. Others left, abandoning homes and streets to the cold. The village remembers them all, preserving fragments of life in frozen corners, frost-covered windows, and the hollow echoes of empty barns. As evening approaches, the shadows deepen, stretching across rooftops and fences. Snow swirls in gentle eddies, catching light from the pale winter sky. Figures along the roads become fleeting glimpses, moving with grace before vanishing entirely. The silent waves from old townsfolk at windows linger in memory, a reminder that Snowbound is never entirely empty. Even as darkness settles, the village maintains an ethereal beauty. Icicles hang from roofs like crystal ornaments, and snow forms soft, rolling patterns across fields and paths. The wind carries whispers of the past, and the presence of those who remain, whether in memory or in the frost, is palpable. Each step through Snowbound is a journey through time, through lives once lived, and through stories that refuse to be forgotten. Snowbound endures as a place where memory and nature intertwine. The barns, stables, roads, and cottages are more than structures. They are vessels for presence and history. The village is alive in a way that is quiet and subtle, yet impossible to ignore. Visitors leave carrying the weight of its stories, the sensation of unseen eyes, and the faint echo of gestures made long ago. And as the night deepens, the question remains with anyone who walks through Snowbound. Are the figures along the roads the souls of those who vanished? Or are they the village itself, moving silently, watching and waiting to be remembered? Frostfield rests quietly beneath a thick blanket of snow, a village shaped by winters that seem to last forever. The air is crisp, each breath visible as a fleeting cloud, and the landscape stretches in endless white. Buildings rise from the snow like frozen monuments, their outlines softened by frost, yet the heart of the village lies in the church, standing proud amidst the frozen streets. The church is the center of activity in Frostfield, though not in the way one might expect. Its walls, weathered by decades of cold, contain echoes of lives long past. Visitors speak of footsteps crossing the snowy floorboards, light and deliberate, yet when they turn, the aisles are empty. The sound is persistent, as if the church itself remembers the rhythms of daily life and continues to walk in memory. Inside, the pews are dusted with frost, and the air carries a faint chill that seeps into clothing and skin. Whispers drift along the aisles, soft and nearly imperceptible, recounting prayers from generations ago. They rise and fall like the wind through the windows, carrying the devotion and hope of those who once filled the space. Some say the words are not always coherent, but the intent is unmistakable, a presence that lingers long after the congregation is gone. Snow piles against the outer doors, yet some find them open, as if inviting the living to enter. Within, sunlight filters through frosted glass, casting muted colors across the floor and walls. Shadows stretch along the pews, shifting in ways that seem almost conscious. Visitors notice the light changing, dimming and brightening without cause, creating an atmosphere both beautiful and unsettling. The surrounding village is silent, muffled beneath heavy snowfall. Streets are empty, and the sound of a single footstep carries far. Yet, as one approaches a church, the subtle echoes of life become apparent. Doors creak open and shut, though the rooms hold no one. Footsteps and whispers persist, a gentle but insistent reminder that Frostfield is inhabited not only by the living, but by the memories of those who have walked its streets before. The church bell, long silent to the villagers, sometimes tolls without reason. Its sound travels across the snow-covered village, resonating against frozen walls and icy rooftops. Those who hear it describe a mixture of awe and unease, as though the bell has become a voice for the unseen, calling attention to the presence of the past and the present. Visitors who linger in the church often feel an unexplainable warmth in certain areas, a contrast to the icy chill outside. These spaces seem to hold a residual energy, a mark left by countless prayers, sermons, and gatherings. The effect is subtle, but noticeable, drawing the attention of anyone sensitive to the shifts of the environment and the quiet insistence of memory. Footsteps echo beyond the church as well, tracing paths through streets lined with frost-covered buildings. Old homes stand abandoned, their windows opaque with ice. Yet some report hearing movement inside. Doors may shift as if opened by invisible hands, and the crunch of snow beneath unseen feet is common among those who explore the village. The sensation is fleeting but undeniable, a reminder that Frostfield is alive in its own way, sustained by echoes of the past. The forest that borders the village seems equally alive. Trees creak under heavy snow, and shadows shift between trunks in patterns that feel deliberate. The wind carries faint sounds from the village, amplified and distorted by the frozen landscape. The boundary between Frostfield and the surrounding wilderness feels thin, as if the spirits that linger in the village could extend their presence beyond the streets and into the trees. At night, the church becomes a focal point of light and shadow. Moonlight filters through stained glass, scattering muted hues across the frosted floor. Shadows stretch and contract as if moving independently of the natural world. Those who stay inside report a heightened awareness of movement, sounds, and whispers. The churchyard is equally striking, with gravestones half buried in snow and old monuments capped with ice. Footprints sometimes appear along the paths, but they do not remain long. Some visitors have described a feeling of being watched among the graves, though no one is present. It is a presence that is protective, patient, and deeply tied to the history of Frostfield. The village holds a quiet beauty that contrasts with its eerie ambience. Snow sparkles in the daylight, reflecting the pale sun, while moonlight creates a silver landscape at night. The architecture of the church and surrounding homes reflects the care and dedication of those who once lived here, frozen now in a tableau of memory and silence. Exploring Frostfield requires a balance of respect and curiosity. Visitors are drawn to the church and the village by its haunting history, by the footsteps, whispers, and occasional light in empty rooms. Each encounter is unique, yet all leave a lasting impression of a place where time lingers, memory persists, and the unseen remains present. The village is a testament to resilience, both of human construction and human memory. Every footstep, every whisper, every shadow contributes to the ongoing story of Frostfield. It is a place where silence carries meaning, where frozen streets and frosted windows speak of life that once thrived, and where the church stands as the enduring heart of community that refuses to be forgotten. As visitors leave, the echoes of Frostfield follow them. The footsteps, the whispers, the faint creak of doors linger in memory, a reminder of the village's persistent presence. The church, silent and frozen, continues to hold the prayers and voices of generations, inviting those who return to witness its quiet power once more. And for anyone who steps into Frostfield, the lingering question remains: who truly inhabits this village? And why do the echoes of the past insist on being heard within the walls of the church and along the snow-covered streets? Icehaven rests at the edge of a frozen valley, a village suspended in time beneath a sky heavy with snow. The buildings are small and weathered, their wooden frames worn by decades of wind and frost. Roofs bow under the weight of ice, and windows are clouded with frost that glimmers in the weak sunlight. The streets are narrow and covered in thick snow, making each step a quiet effort that leaves only temporary traces. Visitors report hearing bells ring without wind, faint chimes that echo across the empty square. The sound seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, lingering in the air long after it fades. It is a sound both beautiful and haunting, a reminder of a past that still whispers across the village. Those who hear it often pause, scanning the snow-covered streets and buildings, searching for the source that never reveals itself. The village square sometimes glows faintly at night, the light spilling across snowdrifts like a gentle pulse. The glow seems to have no origin, yet it illuminates the surrounding buildings with a soft, ethereal sheen. Shadows stretch across the snow, shifting in ways that defy logic. Shapes appear at the edges of vision, glimpses of movement that vanish when confronted directly. The effect is subtle, a sensation rather than a full vision, leaving a lingering sense of wonder and unease. Figures have been seen drifting across the snowdrifts, moving slowly, almost as if suspended in ice. They leave no footprints, and their forms blur against the white landscape. Observers describe them as pale and indistinct, like memories of people once known. Some disappear suddenly, dissolving into the snow or vanishing beyond the tree line. The experience leaves a quiet impression, a feeling that Ice Haven is alive with echoes of its past residents. The village itself tells its story through the weathered textures of its buildings and the patterns in the snow. Wooden fences lean unevenly, sagging under persistent cold. Roofs creak under the weight of ice and snow, and doors shift on their hinges without cause. Each structure seems to hold a memory, a fragment of life that existed before the village became still. The snow captures these moments, preserving them in a fragile, silent archive. Ice Haven is surrounded by dense forests, their dark forms contrasting sharply with the white expanse of the village. Pines bend under snow, their needles glistening in the dim light. The trees sway silently, and even in the absence of wind, branches occasionally snap with startling clarity. The forest feels both protective and watchful, enclosing the village in a quiet embrace while hinting at the secrets it guards. Wildlife is scarce, and the few creatures that remain move with cautious precision, leaving tracks that disappear as quickly as they appear. The cold in Ice Haven is more than a temperature. It settles in the bones, lingering on skin and in the mind. Visitors describe a sense of presence, as if the village itself observes every movement, weighing intentions and reactions. Even in the brightest daylight, shadows seem to stretch longer than possible, and reflections on ice and windows reveal shapes that are almost human but never quite. The experience is subtle yet undeniable, leaving a sense of awe and tension in equal measure. The village square is the heart of Ice Haven, a place where stories converge. The glow at night and the ringing of invisible bells seem concentrated here, intensifying a sense of something beyond the ordinary. Snowdrifts accumulate unevenly, forming mounds and hollows that suggest passage and movement where none has occurred. Observers have felt the impression of being followed, of a presence tracing their path in silence, just beyond the periphery of sight. Abandoned homes line the streets, each with frozen windows and doors that no longer open. Faint lights flicker within some, casting moving shadows across icy floors. The effect is never consistent, appearing only in brief, inexplicable moments. It is as if the homes themselves remember the people who once lived there, replaying fragments of daily life in spectral glimpses. Passers-by often stop to watch, captivated by the impossible dance of light and shadow. Snow continues to fall, layering the village in quiet perfection. Footprints left by visitors vanish quickly, erased by the gentle, persistent drift. Every surface gleams under moonlight, reflecting the ethereal glow of the square and the occasional flicker from windows. The effect is cinematic, as if Ice Haven exists in a parallel dimension where time slows and the past remains tangible. The wind carries sounds across the frozen landscape, faint and haunting. Bells, whispers, and distant footsteps mingle with natural noises, creating a soundscape that is both beautiful and unsettling. The combination of light, sound, and movement creates a rhythm that feels alive, an invisible pulse guiding the perception of those who wander through Ice Haven. As night deepens, the village seems to breathe. Lights glow, figures drift, and the echoes of bells continue to ring in the stillness. The forest encloses the village, making it feel isolated yet intimately observed. Ice Haven is not a place frozen only in winter, but frozen in memory and presence, a living tableau of the past and its persistent resonance in the present. Visitors leave with impressions that linger long after the snow has melted. The bells, the glow, the drifting figures, and the weight of quiet become a part of memory, indelible and mysterious. Ice Haven is a village of frozen stories, spectral echoes, and subtle unyielding wonder. Its silence is never empty, and its snow never forgets, holding the village in a perpetual state of haunting beauty and quiet intrigue. The snow continues to fall, covering the streets and buildings, shaping the village anew with every flake. The bells ring in the mind, the figures drift in memory, and the glow remains as a promise of the unseen. Icehaven endures as a place of mystery, a frozen landscape where the past and present intertwine, and where every visitor leaves carrying a fragment of its quiet, unending story. Coldridge rests in a remote valley, a village abandoned to time and weather, where old barns and homes lean against the wind and snow. The streets are silent, save for the occasional groan of timber settling and the whisper of wind through broken windows. At first glance, the village appears frozen in stillness, yet those who explore it quickly sense that they are not entirely alone. Visitors often report feeling sudden pressure on their shoulders, a fleeting weight that suggests unseen hands brushing past. The sensation is never threatening, but it lingers, following them along narrow lanes and through derelict buildings. Footsteps echo where none should exist, muted but distinct, as if the village itself remembers the rhythm of life that once filled its streets. Even in the stillness, Coldridge hums with subtle awareness, a quiet energy that cannot be explained by wind or wildlife alone. The barns are among the most striking structures, their wooden beams warped by age and ice. Inside, remnants of farm life remain. Rusted tools hang on walls, hay lies scattered across the floors, and forgotten crates hint at the daily labors that once sustained the community. The air carries a chill that seeps into clothing and skin, and some visitors report hearing the creak of doors and boards above them, as though someone moves among the rafters. Shadows pool in corners, shifting slightly when no one is watching, giving the impression of silent observers. Homes along the main road tell stories of families that once lived here. Furniture stands abandoned, curtains flutter in drafts, and personal items lie untouched, preserved by neglect. Visitors describe a sense of intimacy with the past, as though the buildings themselves hold memories and replay them in subtle ways. Occasionally, faint laughter or the sound of children playing drifts through the snow-laden streets. The sounds are distant, fleeting, and vanish the moment one tries to locate their source, leaving only the echo of what might have been. Coldridge's South Main Street stretches between weathered homes and barns, the path interrupted by snowdrifts and fallen timbers. Footprints appear and fade unexpectedly, leaving travelers questioning whether they have truly moved through a space alone. The village feels alive in absence, each building, lane, and empty yard infused with traces of human presence. Even the smallest gesture, an open door, a rocking chair slightly shifted, or a shutter swinging on broken hinges, suggests life continues in forms unseen. Inside some homes, fireplaces stand cold, their hearts filled with ashes untouched for decades. Tables bear the marks of meals long finished, and old books or toys lie in corners as if forgotten only yesterday. Light filters through broken windows, casting fractured shadows across floors and walls, illuminating spaces where unseen movements appear to occur. Chairs may tilt, doors may creak, and visitors often describe a feeling of being followed, an awareness of presence that never fully reveals itself. The surrounding landscape adds to the haunting atmosphere. Trees line the perimeter, their branches heavy with ice, creaking in the wind like whispers from the past. Visitors walking the edges of Coldridge often hear the faintest sound of activity: children running, a ball bouncing, or voices calling from the distance. When approached, the sounds vanish, leaving only the wind and silence to fill the space. Evenings in Coldridge carry a particular intensity. The fading light casts long shadows across empty streets and rooftops, emphasizing the isolation and quiet presence of the village. The cold deepens, and the air feels thick with memory. Subtle movements become more noticeable. A door shifts, the floor creaks, or the hint of laughter drifts on the wind. Those who linger into the night describe the sensation of being watched, a gentle awareness of unseen eyes that follow them as they explore. Every building in Coldridge is a testament to a life that was abruptly interrupted, Broken windows, leaning walls, and empty yards preserve history in physical form, yet they also hold something less tangible. Objects move, sounds echo, and the sense of companionship with invisible residents is palpable, creating a living memory of those who once called Coldridge home. Exploring Coldridge requires patience and attention to detail. Each barn home and lane holds potential for encounters both subtle and inexplicable. Footsteps, fleeting shadows, and whispers provide constant reminders that the village is not empty, but inhabited by memories and echoes of life. Visitors often leave with a sense of awe and unease, carrying the experience with them long after departing, aware that Coldridge retains its stories and its presence in a way that transcends time. Coldridge endures as a place where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist. Snow blankets the village, yet beneath it lies history and mystery intertwined. The barns and homes continue to creak and shift. The unseen observers remain, and the laughter of children drifts through the air before fading into nothing. For those who step into its frozen streets, Coldridge offers a glimpse into a past that persists, a village alive with memory, shadow, and quiet, spectral presence. Even when visitors leave, Coldridge holds on to them. The snow-laden streets, the groaning timbers, and the faint echoes of play and footsteps linger in memory. It is a village where the past refuses to rest completely, where invisible hands brush shoulders and fleeting sounds draw attention to what cannot be seen. Coldridge waits patiently for those willing to walk its streets, to feel its presence, and to listen to the stories whispered by snow, ice, and timber. Snowvale lies hidden beneath a thick blanket of snow, a cemetery where time seems to stand still. Tombstones rise like silent sentinels from frozen earth, their surfaces etched with names long forgotten. The landscape stretches endlessly, fields and forests draped in white, and yet the air is alive with presence. Shadows drift among the trees, shifting and elongating as the wind passes through skeletal branches. They move silently across frozen fields, gliding over snowdrifts and graves alike, their origin uncertain. Every step taken in Snowvale is accompanied by a subtle sensation of being observed, a feeling that something unseen is watching from just beyond the edge of sight. Visitors often report hearing whispers carried. On the wind, names are spoken softly, sometimes in repetition of people unknown and unrecorded. The voices do not demand attention, but they linger wrapping around the mind like mist, leaving a trace of unease and curiosity. Each whisper seems to have a history of story attached, that is just out of reach. The pathways between graves are hidden beneath ice and snow, yet the impressions of footsteps sometimes appear, crossing the ground without origin. They wind through the cemetery, past toppled stones and frozen crypts, pausing at spots where the snow is smooth and undisturbed. Some who follow these marks feel a subtle pull, a quiet insistence that the paths are leading them to something long buried in memory. Among the trees, fog weaves in and out, creating a veil over the landscape. Branches creak softly, casting dancing shadows across snow and stone. The forest bordering the cemetery feels alive in a way that is both comforting and unsettling. It listens and it remembers, keeping watch over the dead and those who come to witness them. Figures sometimes appear at the edge of the woods, vanishing when approached, leaving behind only the impression of presence. Tombstones themselves carry more than names. Some bear faint etchings of flowers or symbols now obscured by frost. The older graves are marked by weathered stones that lean precariously, as if bowing to the weight of memory itself. Between these stones, figures sometimes appear, silhouettes that linger for moments before melting into the white landscape. The atmosphere in Snowvale is heavy yet serene. Every gust of wind, every falling icicle, adds to the sense that the cemetery is aware of its visitors. Some have reported seeing forms move among the stones, shadows that do not match any natural movement. Others describe sudden chills or the feeling of being gently followed, even when the cemetery is empty. It is a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and where every observer becomes a part of its silent story. Along the frozen pathways, small markers and crosses lie partially hidden under snow. Some visitors have felt compelled to kneel to touch the cold surfaces. And in those moments, the whispers seem to grow closer. Names are spoken again, soft and deliberate, lingering in the mind like faint echoes of a conversation long ended. Each interaction feels intimate, as though the cemetery itself remembers the lives it contains and wishes them to be acknowledged. Snow Vale is not simply a place of the dead. It is a threshold between worlds where memory and presence overlap. Shadows, whispers, and fleeting figures create a tapestry of existence that defies simple explanation. Visitors leave carrying a sense of having encountered something beyond sight, a story that cannot be fully understood, but is felt deeply in the quiet moments that follow. Even as daylight fades, the cemetery transforms. Shadows stretch further across snow-covered graves, and the fog thickens. Figures in the distance appear more frequently, sometimes walking, sometimes standing still, and always vanishing when approached. The whispers rise in intensity, repeating names and phrases that remain just beyond comprehension. The forest and open fields surrounding Snow Vale contribute to its mysterious aura. Snow drifts along fences, tree lines, and broken stone walls. Footprints appear in isolated spots and disappear just as quickly. Icicles hang like crystalline ornaments, catching the pale light of the setting sun and casting fractured reflections across the snow. It is a beauty both haunting and fragile, as if the landscape itself is aware of its transient nature. Walking through Snow Vale is an experience of presence and absence intertwined. Every shadow seems intentional, every whisper purposeful, and every step taken across the frozen ground connects a visitor with lives once lived. The cemetery endures as a space where memory is tangible, where the past is held in balance with the present, and where every visitor becomes part of an ongoing, silent narrative. As night settles, the wind rises and snow swirls in gentle, hypnotic spirals. Shadows grow longer, figures move more freely across fields and among tombstones, and the whispers repeat, soft and steady, a lullaby of forgotten names. Snow Vale exists in this delicate balance, a place where the living and the remembered meet, quietly observing one another across time and space. And as the darkness deepens, one question lingers with every visitor. Are the figures and whispers the echoes of those who passed before? Or is the cemetery itself alive, carrying memory and presence? In a world where silence is never truly empty, winter shade rests under a heavy blanket of snow, a village swallowed by winter and suspended between past and present. The landscape is endless white, trees weighed down with frost, and streets erased beneath drifting snow. Even the wind seems cautious here, carrying a silence that feels alive, as though the village itself is watching. Paths through winter shade are often blocked by deep snow, yet footprints appear as if someone has just passed. Visitors who follow them report an uneasy sensation, a feeling that they are not alone, that the steps were not left by any living person. The prints sometimes vanish, disappearing into untouched snow without explanation, leaving only a sense of presence. The buildings of winter shade are frozen in time, their roofs heavy with ice, windows opaque with frost. Long-abandoned homes occasionally reveal signs of life. Doors creak open in buildings where no one has dwelled for decades, and the sound echoes across the silent streets. Shadows move within rooms where light should not reach, and the faint glow of an unseen source sometimes flickers through frosted panes. Visitors often feel unseen eyes tracking every step, a persistent awareness that seems to follow them along the narrow lanes. The feeling is subtle at first, a gentle pressure at the back of the mind, but it grows stronger as they move deeper into the village. Some describe the sensation of being guided or warned, as if winter shade itself exerts a quiet influence over those who enter. The village square, once the heart of community life, is now buried beneath snow. Benches lie half-covered, fountains capped in ice, and lamp-posts lean under the weight of frost. and lampposts lean under the weight of frost. On still nights, the moon casts long, distorted shadows, giving the impression of movement where none exists. On still nights, the moon casts long, distorted shadows, giving the impression of movement where none exists. Those who linger here often hear faint footsteps, echoing across the square, though the streets remain empty. Those who linger here often hear faint footsteps, echoing across the square, though the streets remain empty. The old chapel stands at the center of winter shade, its steeple rising above snow-laden rooftops. Inside, the air is colder, sharper, and every sound seems amplified. Footsteps resonate across the floorboards, whispering along the pews. Yet when investigated, the chapel is empty. Visitors report a presence, subtle yet persistent, as if the prayers of generations past linger in the very walls. Beyond the chapel, narrow lanes wind between homes and workshops, all silent beneath the snow. Rusted tools and frozen carts lie scattered, frozen mid-use, and the crunch of fresh snow underfoot is the only sound that breaks the stillness. Yet even here, some claim to hear movement that cannot be explained, doors opening, floors settling, and the soft murmur of voices carried on the wind. The forest surrounding winter shade presses close, trees heavy with frost forming natural walls that hem in the village. Shadows shift in ways that seem deliberate, and the wind carries faint, distant sounds of movement. Visitors walking at the edge of the trees often feel watched, the presence of something beyond sight, tracing their steps, yet never revealed. Nightfall transforms winter shade into a place of strange beauty and quiet unease. Moonlight glimmers off icicles hanging from rooftops, casting fractured patterns of light across the snow. Shadows stretch and twist unnaturally. Windows sometimes glow faintly, though no one occupies the buildings. And shadows stretch and twist unnaturally. The quiet becomes charged with anticipation. Every sound amplified, every movement significant, The quiet becomes charged with anticipation. Every sound amplified, every movement significant. The moment hangs suspended, heavy with foreboding. The moment of truth awaits, and the village holds its breath. Footsteps in the snow are perhaps the most persistent phenomenon. They follow travelers along paths, across open fields, and beside frozen rivers. Yet no footprints remain behind. The sensation is unnerving, as if the village itself moves alongside the living, a silent observer leaving only traces in imagination. Some describe the feeling as protective, others as a warning, but all agree it is impossible to ignore. Abandoned barns and workshops hold their own mysteries. Rusted equipment lies frozen mid-use, and snow drifts creep inside through broken doors. The sound of shifting metal, footsteps on wooden floors, and the occasional creak of a swinging door are reported frequently. Visitors often feel a sudden chill, as if a presence is brushed past, leaving no visible trace yet an undeniable impression. Even during the day, winter shade exudes a sense of suspended time. Snow muffles most sounds, yet small noises carry unnaturally far. The snapping of branches, the distant call of a bird, or the settling of ice on rooftops resonates with startling clarity. Every movement feels observed. Every shadow carries weight, and the village seems attuned to the presence of those who dare to explore it. Exploring winter shade is both fascinating and unsettling. Visitors are drawn to the village by its haunting beauty. The footprints in the snow, the whispering voices, and the subtle movements that defy explanation. Every encounter is unique, yet all share a common feeling of connection to something beyond the ordinary, something rooted in the history and memory of the village itself. The village is more than snow and abandoned buildings. It is a living memory, preserved in frost and shadow. Footsteps, whispers, and glimpses of movement serve as reminders. That winter shade is inhabited by echoes of the past, by a presence that lingers in the frozen streets and empty homes. Each visitor leaves with a sense of awe and unease, carrying the village with them long after they depart. Walking through winter shade, one cannot help but notice the balance of beauty and tension. Snow sparkles under the pale sun, trees are etched with frost, and the air is crisp and still. Yet beneath the serenity lies a constant awareness, a feeling that the village watches, remembers, and interacts with all who enter. And as travelers leave, the footprints, whispers, and fleeting glimpses remain in memory. The village endures, its secrets preserved in the snow, its presence persistent, and its mysteries waiting for the next visitor to step into the silent, frozen world of winter shade. Icewind stretches across a remote valley, a place where the cold is absolute and the snow never fully melts. Frozen rivers snake through the landscape, their surfaces glinting under the pale moonlight. The ice holds a strange clarity, reflecting shadows and shapes that shift with the slightest movement. Observers often notice forms that seem out of place, faint distortions on the frozen surface that vanish when approached, leaving only a chill in their wake. Visitors to Icewind speak of faint laughter carried on the icy breeze. It is soft and distant, sometimes teasing, other times haunting, as if echoing from unseen gatherings long past. The sound drifts across the valley, curling around snow-laden trees and abandoned cabins, lingering in the ears long after the source disappears. Many describe the laughter as human yet impossible, a reminder that this frozen place holds echoes of lives that no longer exist. Figures sometimes appear along the riverbanks, moving slowly across the snow. They are pale and indistinct, their outlines shimmering against the white landscape. Observers report that these figures dissolve into fog or miss the moment they are noticed directly, leaving behind no footprints or traces. Their presence is fleeting but powerful, a sense of life and history embedded in the frozen environment, a reminder that Icewind is far more than an empty wilderness. The villages that scatter across the valley are abandoned, their wooden structures sagging under decades of ice and snow. Doors creak on their hinges without wind, and windows are frosted over. Yet reflections sometimes reveal movement inside. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the walls and floors, moving with a rhythm that is subtle yet deliberate. Every cabin, barn, and shed carries a sense of memory, a story frozen within the wood and stone that forms its frame. Paths through the snow are treacherous, hidden beneath drifts that rise like frozen waves. Each step sinks into powder, leaving impressions that vanish as the wind sweeps across the open valley. Observers describe a sensation of being followed, a subtle awareness of shapes at the edge of vision, glancing from shadow to shadow, never fully visible. The combination of light, snow, and shadow creates an effect that is simultaneously beautiful and unnerving. The forests surrounding Icewind are dense, their trees heavy with ice and snow. Branches bow under weight, occasionally snapping with startling sound that echoes across the valley. Wildlife is scarce, but occasional tracks hint at unseen animals moving carefully through the frozen terrain. Even the air feels alive, charged with a quiet tension that leaves visitors alert and aware of every sound and movement. Night brings a transformation. The frozen rivers reflect the faint glow of the moon, creating illusions of depth and motion. Figures drift along the edges of the ice, glimpsed in the corner of the eye, only to vanish into the fog that creeps along the riverbanks. The laughter grows softer, mixing with the crackle of ice and the sigh of the wind, forming a delicate, eerie symphony. Lights flicker in distant cabins, though the structures are abandoned, hinting at the persistence of memories and echoes of life. The valley holds a rhythm of its own, a pulse felt rather than seen. Shadows move across snowdrifts, creating shapes that suggest motion and purpose. Frozen rivers act like mirrors, capturing fleeting images of figures and lights that do not belong. Observers describe a sense of being drawn forward, compelled to follow paths shaped by ice and shadow. Icewind is a place where the past lingers in every detail. The abandoned homes, the frozen rivers, and the empty forests all carry a weight of memory. Sounds of laughter, distant footsteps, and shifting shadows form a presence that is felt as much as is observed. The snow captures and preserves these moments, layering history beneath each flake, each drift, until the village and its surroundings seem suspended between what was and what is. Travelers often speak of a mixture of awe and unease. The valley is breathtaking in its frozen beauty, yet every step reveals a subtle disturbance in the stillness. Figures appear and vanish, laughter drifts on the wind, and reflections in ice create shapes that defy explanation. Each experience is unique, yet all share a common thread. Icewind is alive with echoes, holding stories in the snow, the ice, and the cold air that permeates every corner. Even in daylight, the valley seems to breathe. Sunlight glints on the frozen rivers, casting illusions of movement that vanish when approached. Shadows stretch long across snowdrifts, and the air hums with the quiet tension of the unseen. The abandoned cabins and barns maintain their eerie presence, the structures themselves seeming to remember those who once lived there, replaying fragments of lives long gone in fleeting, spectral forms. The snow continues to fall, soft and relentless, layering the valley in quiet perfection. Footprints vanish almost immediately, and the frozen rivers reflect only what the observer expects to see, though often more appears. The laughter drifts in the wind, the figures move along the banks, and the fog curls through the trees, forming a subtle, continuous rhythm that defines Icewind. It is a place of frozen stories, lingering memories, and quiet mysteries. Every visitor leaves carrying impressions that remain long after returning to warmth and civilization. The frozen rivers, drifting figures, and unseen laughter continue in memory, creating a tapestry experience that binds the observer to the valley. Icewind is not simply a frozen landscape. It is a living echo, a place where past and present intertwine, and where every moment holds a possibility of witnessing something both beautiful and inexplicably haunting. The wind moves through the valley, carrying the faint laughter and whispers of the past. Figures appear along the ice, and shadows shift across the snow. The frozen rivers reflect shapes that vanish, yet their presence lingers in the mind of anyone who dares to enter. Icewind endures as a landscape of mystery, frozen beauty, and subtle, unrelenting wonder. Holding its stories in the ice, the snow, and the quiet, watchful air, Frost Grove lies shrouded in perpetual winter, a village half buried beneath layers of snow and ice. The remnants of houses jet out from drifts, their roofs weighed down by frost, windows cracked or shattered, and doors frozen in place. What was once a bustling settlement now feels suspended in time, a frozen memory where silence dominates, yet movement and presence linger in ways that defy explanation. Visitors entering Frost Grove often feel the cold differently here, sharper and more invasive. It seems to seep into the bones, a chill that is not entirely from the snow and wind. Many speak of sudden sensations of being touched from behind, the brush of cold hands on shoulders or arms, fleeting and inexplicable. The feeling never lasts, yet leaves a mark, a lingering awareness that the village is not as empty as it appears. The streets wind through half-buried homes, some reduced to mere outlines beneath snowdrifts. Wooden fences poke through icy layers, leaning at impossible angles, and chimneys, long silent, rise like skeletal fingers against the pale sky. Chimneys, long silent, rise like skeletal fingers against the pale sky. Crumbling barns and sheds tilt precariously, their interiors filled with frost and shadows. Every building carries the weight of memory, and visitors quickly realize that the structures themselves seem to retain the presence of those who once lived here. Visitors quickly realize that the structures themselves seem to retain the presence of those who once lived here. Inside the larger homes, the remnants of daily life remain frozen in time. Tables sit laden with dust and frost. Chairs are overturned or shifted slightly as if someone invisible still occupies them. Shelves hold jars and containers, their content preserved by cold, yet untouched by human hands for decades. Light filters in through broken windows, casting fractured patterns across the floors, illuminating details that draw attention to movements that seem out of place. Footsteps echo softly in empty rooms, yet no one is seen, leaving visitors to wonder the house itself is alive with memory. The sensation of being watched is common throughout Frost Grove. Shadows stretch along walls and across snow-covered floors, shifting subtly when observed. Visitors report lights appearing in windows of buildings that no longer exist, glowing faintly before fading into darkness. The phenomenon is brief, disorienting, and inexplicable, yet it reinforces a sense that the village holds on to echoes of the past, playing them out in ways that those who enter can glimpse but never fully understand. Paths between homes are obscured by snow, winding unevenly and interrupted by drifts and fallen timber. Travelers moving through Frost Grove notice disturbances in the snow, footprints that appear and vanish, or the impression of something moving just beyond sight. The wind carries faint sounds of whispers, creaking timber, distant laughter, but the origin is never clear. These subtle manifestations create a tension that builds gradually, a constant reminder that the village is not entirely deserted, and that the boundaries between the living and the echoes of the past are blurred. Outbuildings and barns seem particularly active. Doors swing slightly with no wind. Floorboards creak under invisible weight. And shadows linger at the edges of vision. And visitors often pause in these structures, feeling the sensation of someone or something moving near them, brushing past or circling quietly. The effect is never overtly threatening, more a reminder that life, or some echo of it, remains within the frozen walls of Frost Grove. The natural environment reinforces the uncanny atmosphere. Wind funnels through narrow alleys and gaps between buildings, carrying whispers that seem both near and impossibly distant. Snow crunches underfoot, yet the sound is occasionally joined by softer footsteps, subtle and untraceable. Even the brightest daylight cannot dispel the feeling that Frost Grove watches, remembers, and responds to those who enter. Evening in Frost Grove brings a heightened sense of mystery. Shadows grow long, blending with the uneven terrain and half-buried structures. Lights that were absent in the daytime may appear in windows, flickering briefly before vanishing. The cold deepens and the air grows still, carrying only the faintest sounds of movement or whisper. Visitors who remain after dusk describe the village as suspended between worlds, caught between the living present and the lingering presence of those who once inhabited it. Every corner of Frost Grove tells a story of interruption and memory. Broken homes, tilted fences, and buried roofs speak of sudden departure or calamity, yet the village does not feel abandoned entirely. Subtle activity of the shifting of objects, fleeting lights, the sensation of tocha, creates a sense of ongoing life and absence. For those exploring the village, the experience is both haunting and captivating, a reminder that some places retain the essence of those who pass through them long after they have gone. Frost Grove is not only a frozen village. It is a living archive of memory. Each house, each barn, and every path carries a weight of history, and the imprint of presence. Visitors leave with a mixture of awe and unease, aware that the village has touched them in ways that are subtle yet undeniable. Footsteps, shadows, and fleeting lights remain in their minds long after they depart. A reminder of the unseen life that continues in Frost Grove. The village endures through snow and ice, a testament to persistence of memory and presence. Invites exploration, reflection, and careful observation, offering glimpses of the past that refuses to fade entirely. Frost Grove waits patiently for those who enter, revealing just enough to be felt and remembered, yet holding its secrets close. Revealing just enough to be felt and remembered, yet holding its secrets close, allowing only fleeting signs of life in its frozen streets and half-buried homes. Even after visitors have left, the village remains alive in subtle ways. Shadows shift, lights flicker, and the faint impression of unseen hands continues to touch those who return in memory. Frost Grove endures as a place of quiet mystery, a frozen landscape where history and presence intertwine, where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist, and where the past is never truly gone. Snowfield lies beneath a heavy blanket of snow, a town where time seems to have paused. Streets are quiet, the usual sounds of life replaced by the soft crunch of snow underfoot. Old barns rise from the frozen ground, their wooden frames groaning under the weight of ice and frost. Each structure carries a memory of days long past, echoing faint footsteps that seem to belong to those who once lived here. Walking to the town, visitors often feel a presence just beyond sight. The wind moves through empty streets, curling around rooftops and chimneys. carrying whispers that are almost imperceptible. Names are spoken softly, as if the town itself is calling, guiding those who wander through its frozen pathways. Every gust seems to hold a fragment of memory, a story half told and waiting to be discovered. The barns are particularly haunting. Their doors hang crooked on rusted hinges, and hay spills from collapsed roofs. Inside, the floorboards creak as if someone invisible is pacing. Shadows stretch along walls, flickering with the dim light, filtering through broken windows. The air carries a faint scent of the past, a mixture of earth, wood, and cold, reminding visitors that the town was once alive with movement, sound, and purpose. The town square stands at the center of Snowfield, a wide-open space now frozen and still. Snow drifts in rolling waves, partially covering benches and fountains. Shadows have been seen crossing the square, moving in ways that defy explanation. They glide silently across the snow, disappearing when approached, leaving only a sense of motion and presence behind. The square feels like the heart of the town, pulsing with memories that have never faded. Side streets reveal homes partially buried beneath snowdrifts. Roofs sag and windows are frosted, yet some appear to shimmer as though reflecting something more than light. Curtains sway gently despite broken panes, suggesting movement where none should exist. Visitors report hearing soft whispers, voices calling out names never known, as if the town remembers and reaches out to each newcomer individually. Walking past abandoned shops, shelves sag with dust and remnants of goods long forgotten. Faded signs lean precariously against walls, and the floors are strewn with debris frozen in place. The air is heavy with the weight of history, a quiet insistence that every object, every shadow, and every echo hold a story. The whispers grow faintly louder in these spaces, intertwining with the creak of wood and the sigh of wind through cracks and eaves. Beyond the town, fields stretch endlessly under snow, the horizon blurred by frost and mist. Occasional tracks appear in the snow, leading to barns, houses, or disappearing into the white expanse. Some believe these tracks belong to figures that linger unseen, moving between the living and the remembered. The open fields feel both desolate and alive, holding the secrets of Snowfield in every drifting flake and shifting shadow. The surrounding forest adds another layer of mystery. Bare trees rise starkly against the pale winter sky, their branches scraping one another and casting long, eerie shadows. Snow covers the ground in smooth, unbroken expanses, yet impressions appear as if something or someone has passed recently. The forest feels watchful, observing those who enter, and ensuring that the town's history remains present and tangible. Snowfield's history is etched into every building, path, and snow-covered field. The town was once vibrant, filled with families tending barns, children playing in the streets, and townsfolk gathering in the square. Winters were harsh, yet life carried on. Over time, storms, isolation, and unexplained disappearances reduced the town to silence. Those who vanished were never found, leaving behind homes and streets that slowly succumbed to snow and ice. The town remembers them, holding their presence in shadows, whispers, and fleeting movements. Even as daylight fades, Snowfield transforms. The town takes on an ethereal quality, snow reflecting the last pale light, and casting long shadows across rooftops and fields. Figures appear more frequently in the distance, silhouettes gliding across the square or along roads that seem impossible to traverse. Names continue to drift on the wind, repeated softly, as though the town itself is sharing the stories of its people. Walking through Snowfield is a journey through presence and memory. Every step carries weight. Every sound and shadow carries significance. The barns, homes, square, and fields hold more than historia. They hold life in frozen form, waiting for those who enter to witness and acknowledge it. Visitors leave carrying the sensation of being observed, the echo of whispers, and the fleeting impression of figures moving silently through the snow. As night settles, the town grows colder, darker, and yet more alive. Shadows drift more freely across snowdrifts and streets, and the whispers seem to circle with intent, calling out to the living, Snowfield endures as a place where memory and presence overlap, where the past is tangible, and where every visitor becomes a part of its ongoing story. And as darkness deepens, the question lingers for anyone walking through Snowfield. Are the shadows and whispers the echoes of those who once lived here? Or is the town itself moving and watching, preserving life and memory in a landscape frozen by snow and time? Icecliff rests at the edge of towering cliffs, a village carved into the frozen landscape and held in the grip of endless winter. The wind carries a cold that seeps into bone and thought, and an unsettling silence seems to hover over the entire area. The cliffs surrounding the village hold unseen watchers. Shadows move along their edges in ways that seem impossible, and some visitors swear they feel eyes tracking every step they take. The sense of being observed is subtle at first, a pressure in the back of the mind, but grows stronger as one moves closer to the edge, where the air is thinner and the silence more profound. Footsteps are heard on snow-covered streets, sometimes approaching, sometimes retreating, but when investigated, they leave no trace. Travelers report the sound of crunching ice beneath boots, only to realize that they are alone, and the snow remains untouched. Occasionally, cries for help pierce the stillness. They rise suddenly and fade just as quickly, carried on the wind. Visitors have searched the source, but find no one present. The sound seems to belong to the village itself, an echo of past lives, a memory etched into the walls and cliffs, replaying over and over for those willing to listen. The homes of Icecliff are frozen mid-use, doors hanging ajar and windows clouded with frost. The interiors are dark and still, yet some visitors describe subtle movements. Curtains may shift as if stirred by unseen hands. Furniture seems displaced, and faint sound of activity drift from rooms that are long abandoned. The village feels alive in ways that defy explanation, present yet intangible. Narrow alleys wind between the buildings, covered in deep snow. The tracks of animals are few, but some swear they see figures moving at the periphery of vision, vanishing when looked at directly. These glimpses are brief but unsettling, a reminder that the village and its cliffs hold secrets that the living are not meant to fully see. At the cliff edges, the air grows sharper and the snow drifts deeper. Rocks jet out of ice like frozen teeth, and the wind howls with a voice that seems almost human. Visitors report a heightened awareness here, a sense of vulnerability, as though the cliffs themselves are guardians or perhaps witnesses to everything that occurs below. The central square of Icecliff is partially buried, with benches, a fountain, and lampposts barely visible beneath snowdrifts. Moonlight reflects off icy surfaces, casting fractured patterns across the square and creating shadows that stretch unnaturally. It is in these moments that visitors most often sense movement, footsteps crossing the square, or fleeting figures glimpsed out of the corner of the eye. The village church is particularly compelling. Its steeple rises above the rooftops, and inside, the floorboards groan under weight that is not there. Whispers echo along the pews, faint and disjointed, recounting prayers and conversations from generations long gone. Visitors report a sudden cold near the altar, a sensation that is almost like breath on the neck, fleeting yet memorable. Abandoned barns and outbuildings hold their own mysteries. Tools are frozen mid-use. Carts remain half-packed, and snow drifts creep through broken doors. Some claim to hear metal scraping wood, the movement of objects that cannot be explained. Others feel a brush against an arm, a chill that leaves no visible cause, but an unmistakable impression of presence. The forest beyond Icecliff frames the village like a protective wall. Trees heavy with snow form a natural barrier, and shadows shift between trunks as if in quiet motion. The wind carries faint echoes from the village, distorted and amplified, creating an eerie symphony of sound that makes visitors feel both watched and guided at once. Night transforms Icecliff into something otherworldly. Moonlight glimmers off icicles, casting prismatic light across snow-laden streets and rooftops. Shadows twist unnaturally, stretching across snowdrifts and walls. The village feels more alive at night, as if the unseen watchers are moving freely, observing those who dare to explore. Footsteps continue to follow travelers, always present yet leaving no mark. The sensation is persistent, insistent, and impossible to ignore. Some describe it as protective, others as a warning, yet all agree it is undeniable. The village seems to breathe in rhythm with these footsteps, a living memory of life that once flourished here and continues in subtle ways unseen. Even in daylight, Ice Cliff retains a haunting beauty. Snow sparkles under the sun. Cliffs rise like sentinels, and the village streets glisten with frost. Every building, every path, every frozen surface reflects the history of those who once lived here. The village is both a place of awe and unease, a frozen monument to time, memory, and unseen presence. Exploring Ice Cliff is an experience of respect, curiosity, and caution. Visitors are drawn by the cries, the footsteps, the fleeting glimpses of movement, and the subtle awareness of being watched. Each encounter leaves a lasting impression, a memory of a place that is both tangible and impossible to fully grasp. The village is more than its buildings and cliffs. It is a living memory preserved in ice, snow, and shadow. The footsteps, whispers, and unseen watchers are reminders that Ice Cliff is not abandoned in the ordinary sense. It endures, observed by those who remain invisible, yet deeply connected to the living who venture through its streets. Walking through Ice Cliff, one senses a delicate balance between past and present, presence and memory. Footsteps approach, vanish in snow, and echoes of cries linger in the wind. The cliffs, the village, and the frozen streets hold their secrets, waiting for the next visitor to step into their quiet, frozen world. And as travelers depart, the unseen watchers remain, the footsteps fade, but the memory of Ice Cliff persists, an eternal winter frozen in time, holding stories, whispers, and eyes that never truly close. Wintermore sits on the edge of a frozen valley, a village long abandoned except for memories that linger among its ruins. The old mill dominates the landscape, its timbered frame cracked and sagging under decades of snow and ice. Windows are shattered, and the water wheel lies still, frozen solid, yet the structure seems alive with quiet energy. Locals and travelers alike claim that the mill is haunted by its last owner, a presence that refuses to leave despite the passage of time. Visitors who enter the mill report doors opening and closing on their own, the sound sharp and startling against the heavy silence of the snow-covered grounds. The shadows move along walls and floors, shifting with unnatural grace, as if the building itself remembers the movements of long-departed occupants. The air inside carries a cold that penetrates deeper than winter, settling into bones and drawing attention to every small sound and motion. The path leading to Wintermore winds through thick forests, the trees heavy with ice and snow. Every step crunches in the powder, yet the wind is often still, carrying only the faint echo of the forest and the occasional distant creak of the mill. Visitors speak of a sense of being observed, a quiet awareness of shapes at the periphery of vision. Shadows appear and vanish, subtle and fleeting, leaving the impression of life where none should exist. Inside the mill, the floorboards groan under weight, though many report stepping carefully and leaving no marks that could account for sound. Rooms once filled with machinery now lie silent, yet occasional movement suggests invisible hands guiding unseen gears. The cold air carries faint whispers, almost imperceptible, brushing past like icy breath. Some explorers have felt it directly, a chill along the neck or shoulders, hinting at the presence of something that lingers, watching, waiting. Snow accumulates around the ruins, piling high against walls and filling the spaces where windows once framed views of the valley. Footprints appear and vanish with each gust of wind, leaving trails that seem to have no clear origin or end. The landscape itself seems to participate in the haunting, reshaping paths and drifts, creating a labyrinth of snow that both invites and warns the curious. The surrounding village is silent, its buildings leaning under the weight of winter, roofs bowed and windows dark. Ice forms in patterns along the eaves and frozen streams, capturing the light of the pale sun or moon and scattering across snowdrifts in fractured patterns. Shadows stretch long across the streets, blending with the ruins and trees, creating forms that appear almost human, yet vanish when approached. Visitors speak of a stillness that is more than the absence of sound. It is the weight of memory and presence, concentrated in the spaces where life once thrived. Steps echo unnaturally in the halls of the mill, and the occasional slam of a door suggests a rhythm or pattern, as if the building communicates in its own language. The experience is subtle, a combination of sight, sound, and sensation that lingers long after leaving. At night, Wintermore transforms. The moon casts a cold glow over the snow, illuminating the mill in stark relief. Shadows stretch and twist, creating fleeting images of figures that pass behind broken windows or move across snow-covered floors. The chill intensifies and the sensation of icy breath along the skin becomes more pronounced. Some visitors swear they see shapes kneeling among the ruins or standing at the edge of the forest, visible only for a moment before disappearing into darkness. The mill and its surroundings tell a story of labor, life, and unresolved presence. Every broken beam, every frozen water wheel, and every drift of snow contributes to an atmosphere of quiet mystery. Even in daylight, the ruins feel alive, the air charged with subtle movements and faint sounds. The experience is immersive, pulling visitors into a landscape where past and present seem to coexist, where the frozen environment amplifies every sensation. Footpaths through the village and forest appear deceptively simple, yet the snow transforms them with each passing hour. Patterns form in drifts, guiding or misleading, creating a sense of intention in the environment. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and stillness, contributes to perception that Wintermore is not abandoned entirely, but inhabited by echoes and memories that defy explanation. The old mill remains a focal point, a monument to human endeavor and lingering spirit. Doors swing with invisible force. Shadows glide across floors, and icy drafts whisper through gaps in the structure. Each moment spent inside feels charged with anticipation, as if something unseen could appear at any second. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile stimuli creates an experience that is simultaneously captivating and unsettling. Wintermore is not a place of terror, but of quiet, persistent mystery. The ruins, snow, and shadows form a narrative that is subtle yet profound. Visitors leave carrying the impression of movement, whispers, and icy breath. Impressions that persist in memory and imagination. The village and its mill endure as reminders that some presences refuse to fade, and that the past can linger in tangible, perceptible ways. The snow continues to fall, shaping the landscape with each flake, covering footprints and transforming the ruins. Shadows shift, doors open and close, and faint sounds carry across the cold air. Wintermore endures as a place of haunting beauty, where memories and presence intertwine, and where every visitor experiences a fragment of the story that is still unfolding in the frozen silence of the valley. Even as explorers leave, the mill watches, the village remains still, and the snow preserves each moment, holding the echoes of life and presence for those who may one day return. Wintermore is a testament to the enduring nature of memory, mystery, and the subtle, unrelenting presence of history carved into wood, stone, and ice. Snowgrave lies at the edge of a frozen expanse, a village completely buried beneath relentless layers of snow. Its rooftops disappear beneath drifts, chimneys poke like jagged teeth, and streets are all but erased under the weight of winter. The village carries a stillness so complete it feels almost unnatural. Yet within that stillness is an undeniable presence that some say has never left. Visitors stepping into Snowgrave often feel an immediate cold that is different from the outside air, sharper and more invasive. The cold creeps into bones and brings with it the unsettling sensation of being watched. Figures have been reported trudging through deep drifts, their movements deliberate, yet when approached, they vanish as if swallowed by the snow itself. These apparitions are fleeting, glimpsed only at the edge of vision, yet they leave an impression that lingers long after the observer turns away. Abandoned homes and buildings tell the story of lives interrupted. Frost coats the walls, windows are shattered or iced over, and doors hang crooked on rusted hinges. Inside, furniture remains where it was last used, frozen in place beneath layers of dust and frost. Mirrors reflect more than just the interior. Some visitors describe seeing silhouettes within their surfaces, figures that seem to exist outside of time and space. When approached, these forms disappear, leaving only the reflection of the empty room and the faintest echo of movement. Leaving behind only the reflection of the empty room and the faintest echo of movement. Snowgrave streets are obscured by drifts that rise higher than the rooftops of smaller houses. Footsteps appear and vanish without trace, and pathways that were once clear are now impassable. Wind funnels through narrow alleys and across open courtyards, carrying whispers that sound like voices from long ago and who vanished in storms, who never left the village alive, and who now remain as lingering echoes within the snow. The stories are carried in the currents of cold air, felt more than heard, leaving visitors with an uneasy awareness of the history beneath their feet. The village square is a frozen tableau, benches buried under ice, fountains filled with snow, and lampposts bending under the weight of frost. Visitors report subtle movements, doors shifting slightly, snow falling from eaves as if disturbed by unseen hands. The silence is punctuated by occasional creaks and groans, sounds that suggest the structures themselves are alive with memory. Shadows stretch across walls and snowdrifts, and for those paying close attention, they move in ways that feel deliberate, tracing paths of people who are no longer among the living. Inside larger buildings, the weight of presence is more pronounced. Stairs creak as if someone has climbed them moments before. Floors echo with footsteps that vanish when investigated. And rooms that appear empty carry a subtle energy that is impossible to ignore. Objects sometimes shift without cause, small details like a chair turned slightly or a jar nudged across a shelf, as if the remnants of human activity persist long after the villagers themselves are gone. Visitors describe a sensation of being followed, an awareness of unseen observers tracking their movements with quiet intent. The outskirts of Snowgrave amplify the eerie atmosphere. Shadows lengthen and twist, blending with the terrain, making it difficult to distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. Sounds carry far across the frozen landscape, yet their origins remain elusive. Footsteps crunch across distant snowdrifts. Fleeting glimpses of movement appear at the periphery of vision. Lights sometimes glimmer in windows of buildings that no longer exist. These subtle phenomena reinforce the sense that the village is alive in ways that defy explanation. Evening in Snowgrave transforms a village into a spectral landscape. The low sun casts elongated shadows across snowdrifts and rooftops, and the cold intensifies, carrying whispers more clearly on the wind. Figures move briefly through the streets, lights flicker in abandoned homes, and reflections in mirrors shift with no one present. Visitors report the sensation of cold hands brushing past them, fleeting touches that are never threatening, yet impossible to dismiss. Every sound, every movement, heightens the awareness that the village is more than empty structures. It is a vessel of memory and lingering life. Snowgrave endures as a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist. Every house, street, and field carries the weight of history, each detail revealing glimpses of the lives once lived. The snow preserves not only the buildings, but the presence of those who remain, offering subtle signs of ongoing activity. Visitors leave with the impression of a village alive with memory, where echoes of the past intermingle with the frozen present, creating an atmosphere that is haunting, beautiful, and deeply compelling. Even after departure, Snowgrave continues to assert its presence. Shadows shift, lights flicker in vanished buildings, and whispers ride the cold wind across empty streets. The village remains a frozen monument to those who never left, a place where the past is preserved and continues to move quietly among the snow. Those who venture into Snowgrave carry with them the memory of unseen observers, fleeting silhouettes, and whispers in the wind, a reminder that some places never truly surrender to silence, and that the ghosts of history endure, tracing paths through snow and ice for all who dare to enter. We have now walked through 25 haunted forgotten villages in North Dakota. Each village tells a story of snow, silence, and spirits that refuse to rest. The wind carries whispers from the past, shadows watch from abandoned homes, and footsteps follow those who dare to wander. These villages are more than frozen relics. They are alive with memory, sorrow, and the echoes of lives long forgotten. Next time you find yourself in a snow-covered town, remember, the snow may be hiding more than just frozen streets. The abandoned homes may still be watching, and some villages remember every visitor who dares to enter. Thank you for walking through these frozen, haunted lands with me tonight. Stay warm, stay cautious, and may the snow guard you from the restless spirits of forgotten villages.